All right, everybody, welcome back to Drop Dice. It's been a little while since we've played. We are trying a new system tonight. I've got some familiar faces to the channel and a new face who will introduce themselves here in a second. We are actually going to be playing Burning Wheel tonight. This is a playtest of the game. It's a pretty complicated game, so we're going to go a little slow. It's very narrative focused, so it's pretty good. And if you guys have questions about this game once we're done, throw them in the comments section and I'll try and answer them the best I can. The game itself is put out by Luke Crane. It's got basically a Bible for a player's handbook. It's about 500 pages, and then there's a codex, which is also 500 pages. But that's basically everything you need for the game. As complicated as that sounds, it actually ends up being very front-loaded. I've done most of the work and done character creation and stuff so that we could jump right into the action. We are using a Roll20. I'm not going to share that screen because it's mainly for us to roll and have our characters written in a place that I can see it and help the players. But if you want to see how Roll20 works with Burning Wheel, make sure you check out Roll20's YouTube page because there's about 3 seasons of Burning Wheel on there to help you learn as well. In the future, if I do more Burning Wheel stuff, we'll probably make an overlay and do all the fancy stuff, but tonight is more of just a casual thing. So let's introduce our players and who they are playing. Let's start with Lloyd, who's playing Magnus.
Yeah, I'm Lloyd. I run Jarl DM on the YouTubes, and I'm playing Magnus Håkansson, who's a veteran warrior, sailor, grim-faced, bit of a bully, and an expert warrior.
Excellent. Nicholas?
My name's Nick, and I'll be playing Arne Thankmarsen, who's a broken thrall who ranges in the wilds. He's a bit of a loner, a pragmatic and pious man.
Excellent. And Marquise?
So everybody, my name is Marquise. Today I'm playing Stienar the Skald. Quite literally, he's a Skald.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we're doing here, I mentioned this to the characters, is nobody has magic. The setting that we're using is called Iskloft. It is from Jarl DM, so check out his channel if you like Viking fantasy. We chose all man paths. We are playing from the Iskloft region because there's a few different regions in there. And we have no magic. And that's partially just to make things easier to learn, but also we are badass Vikings, so we don't need magic. With that said, let's kind of jump into things. I am going to read off the situation for the audience. It is inside the comment section as well, just so that everybody is aware of what's going on. You've all come from a small outlying village of Rolfstad. Your home was burned to the ground by a tall, alien-looking elf with gray skin and brands all over his body. Most ran away, but a few did fight back. You were survivors of that fight. You managed to ambush an elf and bring him down, but not before he struck down your leader, Rolf the Witch Breaker, and his Ulfhednar guard. On the elf, you found a map with Elven script and a language that's very hard to break. On the map was a mark on Hreafnar. Rolf, with his dying breath, commanded you to go to Hreafnar and warn Jarl Gunnar Gunnarsen of the elves' intent to avenge his death. Stienar, a young skald, was able to decipher some of the script, but it seems the elves are holed up in a fortress called the Song of Winter, to the north of Hreafnar. From everything he has gathered, the elves are out to punish Lord Gunn, burning his holdings and attacking his people. Stienar believes it will take more men than what they have to bring an end to the elven threat. The elves took everything from you. Now it's your turn to take it back. And more. Rally Lord Gunn's forces and eradicate the elves of the Winter Song. Or excuse me, the Song of Winter. There's a typo there. So you guys have been traveling the snow-beaten countryside. It is just about fall, and the first bits of snow, the very kind of heavy fall of snow where it's not thick yet, but there's a lot of flurries, has been going on. You've trudged through, and Magnus, being the kind of person he is, I imagine that he's a little bit ahead, but Arn has scouted ahead and come back. Arn, one of the things that you noticed while you moved forward was the stronghold of Hreafnar just over the horizon. It's been about 3 days of journey from Rolfstad, and you're fairly certain that you've managed to lose the Alfir, or the elves that are on your trail. You guys are free to act here. We're going to basically do a setup scene with you guys being able to explore your characters a little bit, and then we'll jump right into Hreafnar.
So I think Arn would like trudge up, heavily with breath. Lord, Ulfhednar is yonder. If the weather holds, it should not be too long till we reach its walls.
How long?
He kind of turns his head from side to side. Hard to say. With the snow as it is, we'll be slow going. A day or two.
So, Arn, you have a skill that is called orienteering. That's basically routing without a map. I'm opening Magnus's. Or nope, sorry, I do have Arn.
Oh, yeah, I see. Perception.
So it would use perception. Because it's not a skill you currently have, you could roll it using the perception stat. Basically, you'll click on the D6 that's next to perception. Your obstacle is going to be a 2, which would be a routine task for you.
Okay.
Let me just double check to make sure I've got that right as far as what kind of task it is for you.
So I submitted that.
Okay. So you have a 3. Actually, it's a difficult task, so you will get a point towards your stats here. Your obstacle should have been 2, so with 1 success, you'll actually fall short. Yeah, pretty much what you just said about the weather and everything interfering. It's hard to say. It could be a day or two. If you had succeeded, I could tell you exactly how far you had to go.
We could reach it perhaps swifter than that, Lord, he'd say. But we'd be exhausted. Wouldn't want the Alpha to catch us like that. We barely survive, and then he realized, and he just will let his words trail off unspoken.
Yeah, when you left Rolfstad, there was about 8 men in your party. You're the last of them.
This, my friends, is the weather of wolves, and the Alfir hunt in the weather of wolves. We approach now, we die, we get strangled in our sleep. And then you turn around and you see the beautiful man that is Stienar the Skald. Too beautiful to be a Viking, too beautiful to be out here hunting down Alfir. He is everything that would be opposed to Magnus aesthetically when you look at him. Blonde-haired, blue-eyed, his wineskin in his hand, full of mead and not water. He takes a swig from it, and the weather of wolves will only grow worse, my friends. And he looks at you both, expecting you to listen and knowing that you probably won't.
What use, Skald, are Grimnir's lip streams when it comes to the spear din, when it comes through walking through snow?
My friend, my destroyer of rings, you forget who it was who broke the script of the elves, who figured out what they were doing, who knows what the Alfir are planning and what they will plan next. The lip stream will not stop here because the lip stream is what will save our people.
He spits under the ground and like cracks his neck, and just like turns to Arn. You know, are we safer to stop, or should we continue through exhaustion to the walls?
We should keep going, Lord, not stop, but we should not rush, push ourselves to needless exhaustion. We should press on while we can see and while the weather is still. We must seek allies. We must warn them.
With that, a clear ring of a howl from a wolf emanates from the woods. Magnus, you've walked across these lands far too long to know that wolf is not far behind, and it's calling allies. In a few moments, you'll at least see 3 or 4. Wolves in this region aren't very common, but they still hold the pack mentality.
Yeah, Magnus would like shrug his shoulders at that noise, and then he would like stop moving entirely and like listen. He would like tilt his ear upwards a little bit, trying to catch any echoes to the howl, and he would like look meaningfully at Arn to get ready, and he would look at the Skald with the same look, and then realize what's the point, and look back at Arn.
When you look at the Skald, you see that due to his instincts, his hand is already on his axe. This is a shady situation, a place he does not want to be. Winter's jaws are approaching, and he does not want to be caught unaware with them.
Have you got a shield, Skald?
Oh, sorry. No, I do not.
He would like appraise the situation like tactically, and he would think if we all had shields, then maybe we could do something, but we don't. And so he would look for like a large tree, the largest he could find to put his back against, and he would like look at Arn, tell the Skull to get behind them, and they would like lock shields.
So moments later, as you guys are breaking into formation with the tree, a wolf snaps out, and Arn, without hesitation, snaps his shield up and deflects the wolf's blow across his shield. We're not going to roll for that one. I just like that thematically. So the wolf kind of skids around and like rears back, and you can see that there are 2 more inside the woods approaching. So how initiative works is basically when it's a story narrative thing like this, we just choose who goes first. It's kind of a popcorn initiative type thing. When we get to the duel rules, there's a set of rules that basically says who goes first in that kind of scenario. So I think Magnus, being kind of the predator that he is and was ready for them, he's going to be the first one to strike out. Great axe in hand.
Yep. So then I'll definitely do that.
Okay.
I guess I've been carrying it. Otherwise, I'd be shield and swording, but I've been carrying it like over my shoulder, and so I would like drop down into a ready position and just try and like as brutally as possible kill this wolf, so the others see that there's a reason to fear.
You have just the great axe on you. You're actually in quest.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
You're in quest to find your brother's great sword.
Yeah, I forgot.
That was stolen away. So what you can do is click on the die next to axe.
Yep.
And you can think about some options here as far as skills to fork in, like we talked about before. Sort of martial type attack can be forked in with another one. Hold on. Stay on the stats and skills page. I just put you back on it. If you scroll down, you'll see the skills list. Those are the ones with the die next to it.
Yeah.
You can roll it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, you know how to swing a greatsword in the same motion that you would swing an axe, which is that downward thrust. So if you describe yourself doing that, I'll let you fork those 2 together, or any other skill combination you want.
Okay.
Like if you want intimidation because you're a predatory badass, I could see that.
Yeah, well, that was my approach. Like the hope would be that like this wolf gets like ruined badly enough and like injured or maimed terribly, so that it starts whining, and so the other wolves might.
Yeah, you're trying to assert dominance. Okay, yeah. So basically, when you make a roll, you state what your intent is and how the action is going to be carried out, and that determines what skill we're going to use. Because you're talking about basically just wounding the animal to assert dominance, I think you're going to roll intimidation, but be able to fork axe into it. Okay. So you can click on the intimidation D6.
Mm-hmm.
When the roll comes up, it'll ask you if you have any bonuses. I'm going to say that you get 1 bonus for forking an axe, and I'm going to give you another bonus for being predatory. So that's going to be 2. And then from there, it's going to ask you if you want to spend Artha. You do have the option to do so if you want, but it's real early in the game, so it's your choice.
Yeah, no, I won't spend it now. Okay.
They do come fast and wild, so if you decide to use one now, but you want to play to your beliefs in the next scene, you might be able to get one back.
All right, I'll do it. Why not?
Okay. So put 1 in there because you're going to spend persona to get an extra die.
Okay. And then submit, right?
And then submit.
Obstacle.
Oh, your obstacle is going to be Let's see. These are wild wolves. You're attacking the alpha. I'm going to say it's a 3 because he's pretty much established his dominance here.
Okay, sure. All right, so 3v3 is what I got.
Perfect. You were able to meet it, so you're actually going to beat it. Now, for a 5, a 3 is considered a difficult roll. No, sorry, it's a routine roll. So you can click off. Actually, you don't need any routines to advance that skill. So no worries there. So with that done, you kind of just clip the side of the wolf and give it just enough of a mark to where it knows that you're a threat. So do you want to describe how you go in to actually do that?
Yeah, so Magnus has this big axe in hand, and you can see the wolf is like staring him down. It's like snarling, and it's expecting him to maybe lower his head. But he like rolls his shoulders back. He takes a step forward, and with the butt of the axe, like hits it in the shoulder, and then like slices across that same shoulder. There's a big spray of blood into the snow, and then he lets out this like shout, scream in the hopes to intimidate it.
Perfect. The wolf kind of cows underneath you. You can see the other two starting to back up. Now, the other thing that you guys can do is help each other. So if, let's say, Stienar, who's going to be next, decides to do something, but you're close by, you can aid him using one of your own skills. Just tell me how you're going to aid him. The only thing is if Stienar fails, you also fail. So you suffer the same results he does. So Stienar, you are up.
Stienar has his back to a tree, just as Magnus did moments before. He knows that he is no wielder of the axe. He's no warrior like these two men are, but he is a man who will use his words where he can. And he looks to you, Arn, and he puts a hand on your shoulder, and he kind of shoves you forward gently, and he says to you, "Go and feed them to the eagles." And basically he's trying to help him by inspiring him, getting him more motivated, getting his blood up by saying these things to him. So that way when he goes to swing his axe, he just flat out cuts the head off a wolf or something crazy.
Okay.
Like that.
So whenever you do that, we pick a skill that would be associated with it. I think rhetoric really fits for this.
Yep.
So the feed them to the eagles is kind of a rhetoric thing that Vikings would say to each other kind of thing. So Arn, you will have the next move. You can tell that if you break the wolves' will in this next turn, they're going to turn and move away.
Yeah, emboldened by the Skald's word and seeing my lord like locked in a fight with this alpha wolf, I'm going to rush in and try and smash its head with the rim of my shield.
Okay.
Not only trying to brain the wolf, but also bring the shield to bear in case any of the other wolves jump at the at Magnus, which will kind of, I'm hoping to aid to his defense by sacrificing my own, if that's a possible thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're going to roll shield training. You're going to get 1 bonus from the Skald helping you. And if you want to, a logical skill here to fork in would be forest wise, because wolves are a creature of the forest. So that would be a bonus of 2 total. You could also fork in brawling. You already rolled.
I put it in before I added in my forest wise, but that's cool. I'll just see what that is.
So basically, yeah, you can fork in a ton of stuff if you really kind of think about it. And you're like, I want to use all of this together. So yeah, your obstacle was 1 because you're just trying to break the morale of them. So actually, reroll your shield training and give yourself a modifier of 3 because you gave yourself a modifier of 1, and that 2 dice is kind of a big difference.
Okay.
Perfect. So with 4, you're actually going to like go well beyond and exceed on that one. So tell me about how your strike is enough that it turns away the threat of these 3 wolves.
It smashes into the side of the head of this wolf. I'd hope to like kill it, but I'm not strong enough, so weak and exhausted. It does make the alpha like wince and like type thing when that like weak sound kind of seeps into the others and like feel them up their own alphas fear, and it spurns them away as well, yapping and whimpering.
Absolutely. So just a few moments later, quiet returns to the woods, and you can hear the breeze of the trees come through again. And after a few moments, Arn, you kind of get the sixth sense that you're clear finally. You can hear birds in the trees again. Peace is kind of restored to your area of the woods right now. And a few hours more of training, you guys crest over a hill, and it's kind of like the opening to the movie. You see Hreafnar, and it says Rolfstad is burning as the credits go by. The next scene will kind of flash forward, and you guys are in a long hall, and there's this huge fire pit, and there's the smell of meats in the air, potatoes, and there's a bunch of jewels from foreign countries, churches being raided, that are being pilfered and kind of passed around by sworn men of Lord Gunn. This is you guys coming into the hall for the first time. I imagine that Stienar kind of like rolls up his sleeves a little bit, and he's like, I got this, and he's the first one through the door.
Yeah, oh, most definitely. Stienar steps in. He looks around. It's like a quick turn. He looks back to Magnus, knowing he's going to get that disapproving look, and then he just turns away from both of them, slicks his hair back, and starts moving towards some of these nice-looking jewels over here.
So here's a question about the world that I'm going to pose to Lloyd as the creator of Iskloft. What is Lord Gunn's relationship to Ogvi's bastards?
Not good. Certainly not good.
Okay, that's good.
Most of the lords hate Ogvi pretty strongly.
Okay, so I'll keep that in mind, because he'll know of your relationship with Ogvi's bastards. So Lord Gunn sees you come in, and he stands up. He goes, "What are you doing in my hall?" And Lord Gunn is a man that is known for his ferocity, might be the polite way to say it. Huge man, much taller than even Magnus, and far bulkier. The throne that he sits upon at the end of this hallway looks like it was made for two men of normal size and stature. He grabs this wolf pelt of one of the great wolves and puts it over his shoulders and walks over to you, Skald. And he says, "Are you eyeing my plunder?"
He looks at him, side-eyeing, and then he looks back over to the other two, and then he looks back to the plunder, then back to the Jarl, and he says, "No, Destroyer of Rings, I came here to warn you."
Warn me? You are in my home. Nothing is approachable from here.
My friend. And he reaches into his I guess his cloak, I would call it, and he pulls out a piece of parchment that is rolled up. It's tied by a lock of his own hair. He quickly ties it off and he unfurls it. And when he unfurls it, you see the map with the Elvish script on it. And he looks to the Jarl and he says, "Do you read this?"
Lord Gunn kind of looks at the map and he says, Elven filth script, and he spits to the ground, and you can hear, like, from the background, all of his sworn warriors. There's like a dozen spits that follow immediately. There's this especially kind of hairy, smelly guy that's like right behind Lord Gunn that's just got a beard full of grease from eating like grilled chicken recently. And he spits and it's just like drools down his beard. It's just disgusting.
Without looking back to Magnus, the Skald simply says, "Show him the head."
Magnus is not impressed with the situation at all. But he'll approach. He'll leave his axe at the door, not want to approach the Jarl armed. He'll approach slowly. Jarl, thank you for the hospitality of your hall. This talented Skald, he'll say with venom, is telling the truth. There have been alpha incursions, and he'll reach for that head.
So what do you do to display the head? Do you just kind of throw it on the floor, or do you actually hold it up?
Yeah, so depending on how close I can get to the Jarl, I would grab
Lord
it by the
Gunn
hair.
is not a man that is easily intimidated. He doesn't care if you come fully armed to him. He'll let you come as close as you want. In fact, it just makes you closer to him in his mind.
Right. Yeah, I didn't want to be disrespectful. That Magnus is aware that like he is a rad lord, but Lord Gunn is more rad. And so like he'll step into the hole and he'll like pull it out of the bag by the hair and like hold it up, and like kind of show it around as if it's like the head of a Medusa.
Yeah. And there's kind of whispers. You hear some of the thralls like dropping plates of stuff, and Gunn turns around and like just screams at the thrall that dropped a plate full of wines. Get out of here, all of you. Thralls, exit my hall.
Arne will rise like near Magnus's axe, where he was like standing kind of guarding over it, and he'll retreat, simpering like the rest, retreating.
Okay.
And if there's like an antechamber where like household stuff or thralls go, imagine he'd like go there and maybe find a bit of like scrapings or leavings, food shared amongst them, kind of like a common thing amongst the cast, maybe.
You're embracing the broken trait right now.
That's right.
You a fate point for that. So I'm gonna type in your fate pool here too. And now,
thank you.
No, I was gonna roll against you, but you were like, nope, I'm a slave, moving.
I'm a thrall and broken, so when he said it, like even though he's not my lord, he's a lord, so I just like had to do it.
So Arn has kind of walked away, and Lord Gunn says, where was this scene? And he lays out the map that's got the Elven script on it, kind of near the central kind of long fireplace. It's like a trough full of coals in the center of this hall to heat it. And he sets it on the stonework on the side, and he sets down a glass of wine on each side to hold the map open. And he's got his finger on Hreafnar because he can tell very easily just from looking at the map where he is. Where did you start?
So one of the edges of the map is like curling up, and Magnus will like thunk the head on top of it so it stays down. And it'll roll, and you'll see that there's like a symbol carved into the forehead. It's like a diamond shaped, sideways diamond with a line through the middle. Eye of Odin, to keep away bad spirits. He'll leave that there, and then he'll like look over the map for Rolfstad.
Yeah, after a few moments, you're familiar enough with the countryside to be able to identify your home on a map. You pointed out, and he says, "I was 7 days here. How many?"
Too many.
Too many. A dozen? 2 dozen? A horde? What are we speaking of?
So Magnus is like wary. He needs this man's support, so he doesn't want to over or underestimate. Trying to pick the right number. How many was it that he saw?
You counted 6. And kind of the old traditional tale is when you see an elf, there's 3 more in hiding.
Right. He'll run his hand through his hair, which is like soaking wet from snow. He'll like wring out the end of it and like splash it down onto the ground into the fire. It's about a score.
Okay. I'm going to change our map real quick, because what we're doing now is kind of setting up for what's called a duel of wits. This is kind of where Stienar should shine. It's kind of like his version of combat. On the page, it's got kind of our rules for how to do it, and we can set up a statement of purpose. If you go to the tools section to the left there, there's one that allows you to do text. You can type in your text there. So Stienar, this is kind of your chance to start the duel of wits, convincing him. Magnus has kind of set the groundwork to say, hey, we need your help. There's like a score of elves out there.
Where is the tool? Do you want to type it first or just say it first?
So Yeah, let's just say our statement of purpose, because we don't really need to type that out. But I do want you to type inside there the body of argument, like what your body of argument total is. That way we can track it.
One sec, I'm trying to find the tool function for it, because I'm seeing like dual was actions and all that, but I'm not seeing.
Okay, so the page you're on should have like the opponent's actions and stuff. If you go to the left, there's like a toolbar that's floating just above on Roll20. The third one down looks like a paintbrush. If you click on that, or if you hover over that, you'll see an option that says text and it's got an eye next to it.
I got you. All right. Yeah, I got it.
His body of argument is a, let's see, an 8. He's pretty hard to convince of anything.
So how do I decide my body of argument?
So what you do is for your starting body of argument, it's a will exponent plus your skill successes. So you, let me pull the book real quick here so I can get to the Duel of Wits. Here we go. That is on page 388.
Thank you.
On the little chart there, by the way, for everybody who's involved, those are things that can be done. You guys can aid in the argument by doing things like rebuttaling or obfuscating to assist him. Those can be used to help him out with his roles.
Okay.
But he's basically the main person in this. The fight mechanics kind of work similar. However, you can technically have multiple people fighting.
All right. So I'm going to start with my statement of purpose then. Stienar steps forward. He steps around the table like Troth, actually. He puts his hand onto the table, onto the map, and he looks from Magnus straight to the Jarl. And he says to him, a score of Alfir sent 120 down Hell's roads. We need every man to go stop them, every man to go kill them. We need every spear to go make a storm. Or else there will be another 120, and then another 120, until there are no more left to travel the roads.
Lord Gunn, kind of being a practiced lord of his house, looks over the map and he says, I am sorry, but Rolfstad was on the edge of my territory. The Wildlands, if you would. What happens there is not my jurisdiction. Rolfstad will have to find its own vengeance. I cannot afford to send men against a score of elves.
When he says that, to metagame it out, what are the terms? So my terms are basically if I win, he helps me.
So he's being pragmatic. He doesn't want to send out men against the elves because there's 20 of them. As soon as you guys bring up the fortress, he's going to be even more pragmatic about it. He's kind of a soft, like, give me a reason to care is kind of what he's giving you right now.
Could I try and bait him? I know that I'm not in the fight myself, but he knows about Ogvai, and I would just basically throw an insult out to test his courage, if you know what I mean. So I don't know how I do it mechanically, but I would just...
You absolutely can. Let us finish the statement of purpose, because this is kind of like the setup, the framework for the argument, essentially.
Okay, no worries.
So his case, essentially, for stating his case, is Rolfstad was an outlying territory that doesn't pay taxes to him, so he doesn't think he needs to be involved. Give him a reason to care, essentially. Lord Gunn is a little greedy, just in general.
All right. I put in my statement on purpose on the thing. I'm just looking at body argument real quick.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to be testing rhetoric. Is what it looks like. The total buying us for this duel and this duel. Add any successes from the skill test to the characters. Okay. Yeah.
So we also talk about what we would do, what we intend if we win the argument.
Yeah. So
Lord Gunn says to you, I'm willing to take in those that are left of Rolfstad, but I will not sacrifice my men. His intent, if he wins the argument, is to provide you a new home as refugees, and that would be the end of it.
Magnus. Oh, I guess I should ask Lloyd. Lloyd, how many troops are like generally in like a war band, right? In this law.
Very few. Like, it's very hard to feed warriors and like equip them. So,
Yeah.
like, Lord Gunn would probably have
pretty much everybody that's in this hall is his warriors. He's got about a score and a half of warriors under him.
Yeah, like professional warriors of that kind are like very expensive, and so only big lords would have big forces. If you're talking about battles and stuff, you would like arm peasants and stuff. You would arm like people like that.
So my win condition is going to be that basically he will send with us a dozen men, a dozen of his trained professional men. They go with us to go basically slaughter all the elves, the Alfia.
Okay. Yeah, so you're asking him to provide his trained men for assistance.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So next we will, let me pull it real quick here again. Lord Gunn will agree to the terms. I forget the exact posturing that Vikings do when they agree to terms during an arrangement or during a conversation, but I believe it's you brace arms beforehand.
Probably something like that, or spit in the hand and shake, something like that.
So
cut the head off a goat and throw it at another person.
Yeah, I think considering who Lord Gunn is, he's going to take this spit in his hand approach. Will you agree to terms with him essentially?
Steinar's been with a lot of shady people in the past. He's been a slave once upon a time. He's not unused to the spit in the hand. So he does the same, and he grabs his hand and shakes it firmly. Probably the most manly thing Magnus has ever seen him do.
For sure, he's amazed. His eyebrow raises at like the willingness to engage in such a manly thing.
So we each roll a skill test, which could be related to our body of argument, and you can pick any skill that's like a social skill to use during this. So we could.
I'll be using my rhetoric skill.
Perfect.
Nice. Let me go ahead and roll that real quick.
He rolls an intimidate, just to give you an idea of how he handles things.
I don't fork anything, correct?
No, you can if you want. If you think you have something that could fork in.
1 second. My stuff is messing.
You can also spend your persona and stuff for this too.
I'm gonna keep. Actually, yeah, I'll go ahead and spend my persona point on this. So what I'm going to be doing is I want to roll my rhetoric skill, but I also want to work in. I want to fork in my poetry because I plan on using kinnings to help make my point more.
Okay.
So assuming he's a godly man.
That's great with Lord Gunn.
Well, assuming he's a godly man. If it's not a godly man, I won't do anything. And I also want to use my soothing platitudes because a man like him is a man who's a fire, and you need to be able to calm the fire to get past it.
Yes, soothing platitudes will definitely help.
All right. So let me go ahead and do this. Am I doing? And so is it good to go ahead and add in the poetry too, or no?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so it's a modifier of 2 then, correct?
I'm just going to roleplay him as being disinterested in the poetry stuff. Like it is effective, but he's not going to play up that it's effective.
All right, yeah, he won't reveal it. All right, so it's a modifier of 2 then, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and then 1 Arthur, and then obstacle is what's the obstacle? Just 1.
Yeah, you do a 1 just so we can see how many you get. So 2 plus whatever your will exponent is.
Okay, so 2 plus my will, and my will is 5. So my body argument is 7.
Okay, he's got a body argument of 8, and this is kind of like hit points for a conversation. Just so we're kind of clear on this. Magnus has jumped in with his predatory nature. I'm going to give him the first launch of verbal volleys here, even though he's not the one in the fight. What you're attempting to do if you're trying to throw an insult is you can either obfuscate, which is basically
like move away from the issue, right?
Like moving a little bit away from the issue with the insult. That would be kind of a logical thing to do. You could dismiss him, which is basically like, oh, he's a coward, let's move on.
Yeah, that's the one.
Or if you want, you could do the same thing, but incite him, which would be trying to drive him to action.
Okay, no, that's definitely
literally dismissing him.
Yeah, insight is definitely what I want to do.
Okay. So, how do you incite him? What do you tell him? You said you wanted to kind of give him an insult. Let's hear a Viking insult.
Yeah, so I guess Magnus would like raise an eyebrow when he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to I can't. He phrased it in a very cowardly way. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah, he
But
said
Magnus
he's
is
going to waste his soldiers
right.
on basically a wild goose chase, is what he's calling it.
So Magnus would like raise an eyebrow at that.
You know that winter is setting in, and it's not uncommon for Jarls to basically, during this phase of fall, just like cloister up and just refuse to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. But he would like raise an eyebrow and he would say, I thought that Lord Gunn was a name feared throughout these lands, and yet at the mention of Alfar, he'd sooner cower in his fortress. I remember when I walked with Ogvai 3 names, and I remember that Ogvai had no fear of such creatures. We fought them more than once, and I've seen Ogvai carve many of them down. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I had expected more from this lord.
Lord Gunn has a trait that is basically he never backs down. So when you tell him this, it activates his trait. He's going to embrace it. He says, Ogvai, what a fool. He is lucky if he's cut down more than 2. I could cut down dozens by myself. But what do I stand to gain?
Glory, Lord, and a place at the Ulfhednar side.
He's looking at you, Skald, because with the what do I have to gain? Because you're a man who obviously understands the wealth and how the world works.
When Magnus says that, actually, the skull nods at it, and then he looks to Jarl and he says to him, the storm of Valkyries is upon us. And is it not every man's desire to join the hanged god, to fight for eternity, to fight for glory? What man wants to sit here and die to when his jaw is old? What man wants to sit here and die a straw's death, breaking to disease, fading away, rotting here in this hall? What man doesn't want glory? To feel the flow of blood underneath his axe, to sing the black song as he takes his long ships to the shores of his enemies. What man doesn't want to participate in the storm of Valkyries, my lord? That is what you have to gain. And of course, if you do so, and if you come out alive, and if your threads are not clipped here in these battles, oh, there will be much more waiting for you. The glory will lead you to riches, to jewels, to pelts, to weapons, to swords of your own make. You will have your chance to spread your name across the world as if no one else has ever done so. And that's going to be my points. I mean, taking the point action.
So I purposely set it up this way so that we could talk a little bit about actions. It's a little bit more complicated than what we're doing right now. We're going to start doing the complications as we go. But with a point, he tried to dismiss you. You used a point. So I use the chart and I compare the two. So when he dismisses and you make a point, it's a standard test.
Yep.
So his body of argument serves as his defense on that.
All right. So
let me double check that real quick and make sure that that's the right case, because it might not be that high, because that's pretty high actually.
I like this as a mechanic a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's involved, but I think it's really interesting.
It's going to get a lot more interesting once we start using the actions the way they're supposed to.
Yeah,
like
the other actions.
This is the junior version we're using right now, but next turn we'll start using the full.
Yeah, I hope I'm not looking to hit an 8, because it'll be very difficult even if I start forking a lot of things in.
It actually doesn't say how I'm supposed to dismiss.
1 second.
Let me see. Maybe I just scroll past it. Because I'm looking for the definition of the actions, because when you go into combat, it's pretty detailed.
So he's dismissing, correct?
Yes, he is dismissing.
So if you scripted a dismiss, it adds a +2 dice to his skill and a standard test. Subtract each success rolled from your opponent's body of argument against rebuttal.
Where do you see that?
I'm reading dismiss in the book, so it's page 395.
395.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Let me just make sure I'm on the same page. Here we go. Yeah. All right, so he adds 2 dice to the character's skill, and he is going to dismiss using... Let me take a look here.
So it would be a versus test then, correct? Since it's my point versus his dismiss?
No, it should be a standard.
Okay.
So I just need to figure out what his thing is. Okay. Yeah, he's going to use rhetoric. So his difficulty is going to be a 3. He's basically just being like, I'm Lord Gunn. I'm fucking awesome, bro. Don't come at me. You can't handle this.
All right. I'll go ahead and roll my test as well. Let's see what we got here. Forking in poetry.
Okay, so you're going to beat him. He hears you out and what you say, and he kind of, you can see him start to nod. His body of argument will reduce down to a 7. Or sorry, a 6, because you were able to exceed him. He kind of nods, and if you look, there are 3 decks that are on the lower right-hand side. They look like little playing card decks. The blue one is for Duel of Wits. If you select Choose, it will open it up, and it will have each of the options available in a Duel of Wits. How this works is we pick 3 cards, and we put them down on the table. Put your cards on the bottom section. I'll put mine on the top, and I'll show you what I mean. Left to right will be your actions in order of 1, 2, 3.
All right.
So
we're scripting the volley, basically.
Exactly. So I'm going to put down his first one.
I almost hit a cast spell, and I realized wrong game, wrong character. And
then...
All right, 1 second. I'm going over this.
Actually, let me delete that. I know what he's going to do.
All right. Get this out the way.
And you can put your cards just underneath mine because we're going to flip them in a row.
Okay. So where did you put your card? Okay, I think I put my card in the wrong place.
I just clicked on mine.
All right. Where did you put the card? Okay, I got to scroll down. There we go.
Yeah, you've got 1 on the table right now.
All right. Pretend like this one is not there. Actually, let me take that back. There we go.
You can delete that. No, you can delete it. Actually, drop it back on the table and then hit the delete button.
All right. Well, I'm trying to put that one down. I'm trying to move it. Is what I'm trying to do.
Oh, use your... On the toolbar on the left, there's one that looks like an arrow, like a mouse arrow.
Got it.
And that'll let you move things around again.
Let's do that. And then let me pull it back up. What is Magnus doing during this BTW? Is Magnus just like listening, just being like, man, I hope this works out?
Yeah, so Magnus is like watching back and forth, and he's like seeing that the Skald is useful in this one very particular situation because he has a way with words. Like, he doesn't like him at all, but he knows that, like, Magnus's approach would have been like, just do it, just do it, just do it. He just would have tried to bully. And in this situation, Lord Gunn probably a better bully than Magnus is. So he, like, sees the value in the Skald in this particular situation.
So one thing I do want to touch on is Arn is not in the scene with you guys, but he can provide help by, like, doing things like sending a thrall in to distract him or something like that, like convincing a thrall to do something very stupid so that Lord Gunn gets thrown off in this conversation.
I don't think Arn would do anything of the like. He'd just be like trying to rest or like grab some food. He wouldn't be trying to engage any of the other thralls, but he'd definitely be like listening to overhear like any of their speech. But he wouldn't be like, he's not a deep cunning man, and he wouldn't.
Yeah,
he wouldn't try and foil like this dude who's given his own master hospitality. He'd just be being a good little thrall at the moment.
There we go.
But I'm helping the guys in the chat by like offering ideas like like group play wise, but Arn, for intents and purposes, wouldn't be like engaging in anything other than what I just described, I reckon.
Perfect. So the first volley, the feint, you set up to feint him during the conversation, essentially. He's trying to rebuttal you, but because it's versus feint, let's see here. You can use extortion, falsehood, interrogation, persuasion, poisonous platitudes, religious diatribe, rhetoric, soothing platitudes, or seduction to do that. Basically, a feint is kind of like a point in a conversation. That's the reason I like these cards, because they give us little shorthand versions of everything. So feints go before rebuttals do. So go ahead and start off the conversation.
Gotcha. So a feint, I imagine, is he's getting ready to say something. He's getting ready to
you see him nodding along, and he's about to say something. You catch him as he's about to say something.
As he's about to speak, maybe we'll check something real quick. He says, "Now listen, destroyer of rings. You've earned that title for a reason, correct? You've earned this glory for a reason. You have these men, you have these weapons, you have these jewels, you have this fortress. Let me ask you a question, my Jarl. How did you earn these things?" And he's trying to lead him into something with the feint.
Okay. This is his rebuttal starting up. I earned them by taking them. My foes were laid before me, taken as thralls, their jewels, their glory, mine for the taking. He's going to rebuttal with extortion. You can tell he's trying to get something from you. He wants value for his time, essentially.
So as usual, I'm gonna be doing rhetoric, bringing in the poetry. I'm also gonna be using I want to fork in my song into this. Okay. Because there are many heroes who have songs, who have people who are like cowards and everything. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull that up. Let's get a bit freaky in here with it. All right, so soothing platitudes, plus 3.
Ooh, it's a tie. Okay, so that's gonna go to you as the player.
Dope.
So that's going to drop his body of argument by 1.
Dope.
Change that to a 5 real quick. He go ahead and kind of give me what your actual response would be to him.
When he says that he's taken them, the Scald has to hold back a smile because he's literally fallen right into my verbal trap. And he says, "Now, why would you want to not take anything else? Elf metal, elf maps, elf scripts, more glory, Alfir heads, all ripe for the taking, my lord. All ripe for the taking."
He begins to kind of crookedly smile thinking about it, and we're going to go into the next volley. So let me flip the cards here. So you are looking to obfuscate, and he's looking to make a point. His point will go first. And Hakonsen, you can interfere at any point or throw things in. So if you hear anything that you want to lean on, you can absolutely do that. So his point is, in the past, I've used my intelligence as well as my sword arm to get everything that I have. There's no intelligent path attacking elves out in the open. It's not like they're gathered in one place conveniently for my men to slaughter.
And since I'm obfuscating the point, I imagine as it gets to the end of the point, I just, I begin to cut him off, and I'm just like, does a dog eat meat from a hand with no arms attached to it? No, it makes no sense. The whole thing makes no sense. The dog must eat the proper meat. The wolf must hunt the proper prey. And no one is as good a predator, as sharp a wolf as Magnus to lead these men. And then no one can hunt down these Alfir and come up with tactics as well as he can.
Okay. He's going to use rhetoric, and it's a versus roll on this one.
All right. I'm going to pull my character sheet again.
He got 1 success, so if you want to just do it versus obstacle of 1.
All right. 1 second. All right, there we go.
All right, perfect. So you were able to exceed him. So we're going to drop his body of argument again. He is definitely a man of action, not of words. So delete that and delete that. And we're going to flip the last round here, which he is going to incite, and you are going to make a point. I believe the point comes first. Yeah, it does. So it's a standard obstacle is the opponent's will exponent. If he fails, or sorry, you need to make a steal test against him. So basically, you go to make your point. Go ahead and start, and I'm just going to interrupt you with him inciting.
Now, my lord, we have men here who have already killed elves before. We hunted them down, killed them in the streets when they ambushed us, and we didn't know they were there. We have tactics already. We have the strength to do so already. We have the gumption to do so.
Silence, Scald. What do you know of honor, of battle? You are nothing more than a court jester. I have taken women with more blood on their hands than you. So,
Lord shook his head. So what am I rolling?
You can roll any of those skill options that are on there, and it's versus, or sorry, it's going to be a standard check against his incite.
Can I interrupt at this stage?
You absolutely can. How do you want to get in on this?
So I basically want to reiterate what Gunnar had just said, that this scald is useless, but I'm not. Something like that. So it's like kind of be nodding as he's like telling this skull that he's a little wimp, and Magnus would nod and he would look at the Jarl and he would say, Jarl, this man, if you can call him that, he's good with words. That is his strength. If you can call it a strength. But my strength is in the spear din. It's in killing and winning. I've raided. I have fought wars. I have fought alongside possibly the greatest warrior that's ever lived in Iskloft. I know war, and I know how to win. Even if I bring this perfumed poet with me, do not think that I'm incapable of victory.
Okay. I'm going to say that you are providing aid in this situation because Marquise has a standard obstacle of 6 to deal with right now. So he's going to need the extra dice.
I'm trying to see what else I can fork in, but I think I'm at my limit of forking.
I was going to say any sort of conversation things. Your poetry is working. It's for a fork.
Well, okay, I have a question. So we're talking about Alfir and elves, right? Can I fork in my elf-wise?
You absolutely can.
Oh, dope.
As long as your point includes stuff about elves.
Yeah, it's including everything. The songs, the elves, the poetry, my dude over here, Magnus. We got it all. All right, let me go ahead and make my roll then. So it's 1 from him. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5. Oh, I didn't say, oh my gosh. This is terrible.
He kind of bites into a spot inside your soul where, like, that you're not a man of metal. You're not a warrior. You need to make a steel test, or else you're going to hesitate during the next volley.
Right.
You may not get actions.
Where is my steel? And then no modifiers to that, correct?
Correct. All right, perfect. With that, you will hesitate. You're going to lose one of your actions. So when you choose cards, one of them says stand and drool. Just pick stand and drool in the first thing. it means that he's basically going to open up and take control of this conversation.
I imagine that the Skald, Stienar, he's actually not only hesitating because of what he's saying, but because even his own man, Magnus, who's traveled with this entire time, who he helped kill one of the Alfir, is also like cutting into him in order to get to the Jarl. So it's just like he has two people that he has to deal with to try and convince of his use here. And it's really starting to get to.
Oh, what happened? One of the decks disappeared. Oh, did somebody turn off the deck?
That was me. I'm a genius.
So let's go ahead and pick out the next volley. Essentially, the volley is effectively like a round of conversations. The Duel of Wits is a little bit meta because we're kind of talking things out. As you get used to the game, it becomes a little less meta, and it becomes flip the cards and we have our conversation according to what you're planning. Fights, when you use the fight mechanic, like the actual established fight mechanic, it looks like this as well, just to kind of give you guys an idea of what to look forward to in the future. So he is going to do that. That, and yeah, he's gonna come hard.
Stand and Jewel can be at any point, right? That's to be the first one.
It's got to be the first one because you hesitated. So something you can do in combat is you can intimidate your foe, which is what Magnus did before. But if we use the fight mechanics, you can make them hesitate, which means that you basically pull onslaught on them. Like once you hesitate them, they could go multiple turns where they get absolutely nothing done, and you just wail into them. Jesus. So that's actually a very viable way to conduct combat, is to intimidate your foe and then hit them a lot.
Okay, I'm set up.
You can also cause hesitation through other things. All right, so let's go ahead and flip the first ones. If I can click in a spot where I can see flip card. Okay, so your character is stunned. He's going to make a point, and he says, I see nothing here to gain. Each one of these warriors would cost me 3 summers of raiding to replace, with a man who's half as qualified and as skilled. I am not wasting their lives or their profits with me. And he kind of waves his hand across, and you see like men holding up like brass and gold, like goblets and things like that they've captured from other locations. The greasy kind of smelly dude next to him has got like just an arm full of just bangles and jewelry that he's pulled out of the pile. Unless you can promise my men something of value that they can take home to their families, to feed them, to buy more farmland, you have no point in this conversation with me. And the room gets really silent for a little while, and it just hangs there uncomfortably as you kind of have this inner conflict with yourself. Then we'll flip the next round here.
Damn it.
Okay. He actually attempts to walk away from the conversation and go back to his throne. He sits down, and you were prepared to just like swing back at him, but he made no argument. He literally just walked away from you and sat down. He's turned back to look at you with really nothing to say to you either. Let's move these a little bit to the center here, and we'll flip them. As I stated earlier, you are welcome here as refugees, and I will gladly take another warrior such as yourself, Magnus Håkansson. Your name is not unheard in these halls. I can provide you many a good raid for many summers. I can help you reclaim your home and your ship. What say you?
It's a generous offer, Lord. But I've sworn an oath to the Allfather and to Tyr Lawgiver that I will avenge the death of my brother, and that means killing the Alpha. I do not break oaths.
Okay. Lord Gunn has always been portrayed as a man who views oaths very strongly every time I've seen him in game. So I'm thinking that that's going to provide a aid to Stienar during his avoidal here. So for his point here, he's going to he has a success of 1. So if you get anything, you can reduce him down to 0, and he has no point here. That you've basically kind of come to an impasse, kind of like what he did to you.
Since it's just will, do I fork anything into it still or no?
Yeah, you could fork something in if it makes sense.
So listening to him make these points and to walk away from the conversation, acting as if it's already done. So I'm going to start avoiding this topic of what do you have to gain, because obviously it's getting me nowhere. And the Scald just he looks around the hall and he looks to the head and he picks up the head in both of his hands and he says, "Have you ever held one of these before, Lord Gunn?" And that's just pure avoid. He's completely skirting around the topic with that. And so I'm putting him at elf-wise with that one.
He not to say that it does anything thematically, but he says, "Of course I have."
There we go. So reduce it to 0, what he's saying.
Yep.
All right, so let me go ahead and do my next 3 cards. What is, like, is Nico just, like, still, like, just in the background, just chilling and
crunching on a turnip and, like, drinking some sour wine?
I wish I had the patience to play a slave as well as Nico does. No man can do it as well.
I imagine, like, we can just hear, like, the low, deep mumbles of the lords beyond, but it's kind of just like the chattering of mice amongst the thrall.
Yeah, you definitely can. So some other ideas, if you want to get involved, is you could attempt to speak with some of those lords that are in the back. Since you're a thrall and you could like slip in and like deliver wine and be like, "But isn't there such glory?" or stuff like that to kind of incite his allies to become your allies, kind of thing. You could also do something like, if you wanted to make the point of, "Hey, I'm a thrall and I'm going to go face them, whether you do or not." That's a pretty strong argument to help Marquise in any of his points.
I don't think he'd like go in or try and interrupt or anything. It's definitely not his place. It doesn't make sense. But if any of the thralls or whatever would like ask him or like engage in conversation with him, he wouldn't be like explicit in his like retelling of what happened at Rolfstad, but definitely that he overheard his master saying that the Alpha were coming for Hreafnar. That was deciphered by the Skuldrite upon the trail of the elf script, so that like amongst his own people and lords, there's maybe like the seeds of like we have to ready ourselves against the Alpha. Like the Alpha are coming for us. This isn't Rolfstad's problem. This is Rolfstad's just a stepping stone to the prize type thing. But like I don't even know if he'd be like purposefully like doing it to that end.
I don't think you necessarily are intending to, but I think because slaves are kind of rumor mongers, the thralls will whisper and it will make it out to the other lords. And I don't think it's going to help this roll, but I think next roll is when it's going to finally make its way back to Lord Gunn. We're just kind of improvising that. That's not really a rule. I just thought that would be a cool way to do it.
I don't mind listening to the the discourse of lords anyway. It's interesting to me.
All right, so first round of this volley.
All right, let's flip.
Okay. So, excuse me. You can tell he's trying to avoid the conversation with you. He's actually directed most of his conversation now to Magnus, basically trying to buy Magnus off. Large warriors like this will typically swear themselves to a household. And he goes, Magnus, I know that you have taken your oaths, and I take those oaths very seriously. You may return to my home when it's done, and I will have work for you.
Magnus sneers, like his nose crinkles, and he says, I am going to avenge my brother and fight in the spear din. I will not serve a sniveling lord who won't leave his castle. I wish I hadn't done that, but one of my things is that when nobles put on airs, I got to give them shit, and I just had to do it.
So he kind of sneers at you, and he says, you would reject my hospitality. Because he legit was just like, yep, you're going to serve me. Good deal. Like that's kind of how Lord Gunn works. Yeah, I'm going to say that was a good enough argument that I'm actually going to lower his body of argument. Again, not something that's in the rules. I just think that that's a good way to play it up, just because the way Lord Gunn is. So Lord Gunn hears it, and he says, you would reject my offer. And that's when Stienar kind of steps in with his feint.
Stienar steps in and he holds up the elf head above him, and he's going to brandish it before all the people in the hall, and he says, listen to me, Huskarls! Listen to me, reavers and trained men! And he throws the head to one of the tables, and it bounces off and lands in the fire and bursts in flames, sparks and embers going everywhere. And he says, how would you like if that was the head of your daughters, your wives, your brothers, your sisters, your mothers, your fathers, lopped off by the Alfir and thrown into the flames? Because if you do not help us, this is what this Lord Gunnar is damning you to.
Okay. The avoid is vulnerable to it, so you get to roll, and it's just going to go directly against his body of argument.
All right, dope. So I'm trying to use every skill I have that's not read for this, because I don't know what I have read for. So it's going to be a 5 modifier. And then his body of argument's what right now? 3?
It's a 3. So you stand a chance of actually completely blowing this out.
Nope, I just got tied.
Oh no! It's his obstacle is 1. He technically his obstacle is 0. So all 3 successes knock down his body of argument. The Housecarls rally to your side. You see men getting up, and they're grabbing weapons from the racks behind him, and he sees that he can't continue this vein of arguments, that he will be seen as weak. Up till now, he was weak in Magnus's eyes, but he was pragmatic to his men. But the men have made their decision, and he kind of smiles openly, and he says, well spoken, Skald. You've rallied the hearts of men that have seen foreign countries, fought wars, and taken, and you hear the men laugh. We will be at your side. From here, I'd like to take a quick break, do some smokes and refill on drinks and stuff like that. That was a Duel of Wits, Training Wheels version and full version there. I thought it was a lot of fun. What do you guys think about that, just real quick?
I really like it. I think it's really interesting.
And
it was a little slow, but I actually really liked the rhythm of it, like the way it
rhythm is really good. And any chance I get to yell when I role play, it makes me a very happy person, because I like to yell. So I was pretty happy.
I kind of like that it forces you to take certain tacts, because like I have become quite proficient in arguing in one particular way in these Viking games, which is like, you're a fucking coward. Like, that's the most effective argument. But like when you have these like different tacks that you have to take, you can't always just be a big burly monster, I really like that there's like different approaches you have to take.
Yeah. Every time I've seen Lord Gunn in a game, I always see him as like this pragmatic bully. And so that's why I was trying to pick his moves to where he was just like, nope, fuck you, I'm not listening. It's a lot of fun, like especially playing with some of the characters that are like iconics for your setting and letting them have a chance to be inside here against you. I don't know how you're enjoying Lord Gunn's representation, but I'm having fun with him.
he's like pragmatic to a fault, right? That makes sense to me. He like is successful because he's not an idiot, Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and take our break. We'll be back. Let's see, it's 9:50 my time here, so 9:55 Central, which is 5 minutes. So.
Sounds good.
All right.
So I got Mike the Piper in the chat. For anybody who's watching this in the recorded version later, I wanted to touch on one of the things he brought up. This is something that we talked about before the game actually went live. He asked if we would say that Burning Wheel is very complex. Yes and no is kind of the short answer to that. It's very front-loaded. The first scene where we had the wolves, pretty much the entire game could be done that way, where we resolve things as simple, one attack, one skill roll, and then we bounce it back and forth like that. But when we add other things like the Duel of Wits or the fight rules, those are optional, and they make things a little bit more complicated but fun at the same time. Like the fight rules are very similar to the duel rules, where it's a volley of 3 actions, and we reveal them one at a time, and we compare the results. So what can happen in a fight is, let's say that Marquise decides to block and the elf decides to strike. We compare those results and decide how the dice are rolled. But it's a very much kind of playing poker against each other. So when I think about the elf, for example, during a fight, I think about how the elf would actually fight. I RP the elf's thought process instead of my thought process as the GM. And it makes things a little bit more complicated, but once you kind of start to see the system and you have those supporting mechanics like that little spread, like we have a little chart inside our Roll20 that basically showed how to compare those results. In fact, let me do a screen share so I can show what my Roll20 kind of looks like here. So what I did is we had our body of argument and statement of purpose down here, but as we pulled cards from the deck here, which I'll pull one of them just to show you, we would flip it over, and then we compare insight to, let's say, their point. And it's always the player's action that we choose. So his point versus insight is a standard test, which means that the difficulty is static. If it was a versus, it's versus, and if it's empty, that means that it's vulnerable, meaning that you get to basically attack unhindered is kind of the way to think about it. It's interesting in a lot of ways, and it does kind of make this conversation a little bit more meta / strategic, but I kind of like the way it turned out. Subari actually uses kind of similar, a little bit less complicated versions for our verbal dueling. The stats and stuff are a little intimidating to look at, I'll say that much. And it's very intimidating to build your first character. But as you build the character, you kind of learn how these stats and skills work, just like you would with any other game, and it starts to make a lot more sense. And it's very narrative focused. So long as the GM has kind of a rough idea of what they're doing, the players don't need a whole lot of idea of what they're doing right away. It's pretty easy to jump in as a player. As a GM, I'd say it's about as difficult as Dungeons and Dragons, but maybe a little bit more just because there's more skill options to keep in mind and a few different versatilities on how skills work. I'd say it's like D&D plus as far as difficulty scale goes for the GM. NPCs, by the way, super easy to design. You can either burn them like characters and make them potent, or you can give them just basically a flat stat array based upon how difficult of a challenge you want them to be for the party.
Did you burn Lord Gunnar, or?
Lord Gunn is a flat done character that I did on the fly. I purposely didn't stat him because I wanted to quickly do his numbers up, which is why he only like intimidated and things like that. If I was to do a campaign, Lord Gunn's enough of a potent person in the setting that I would stat him and burn him correctly.
No.
All right. And Nick, are you back?
Yeah, man.
All right, excellent. So I think the camera kind of goes into the fire as the flames lick up around the elf's skull and peel back the flesh. There's that light flash, and then the camera kind of fades out. By the way, we're not going to do the fight mechanics tonight. We're just going to do simple fighting rules, just because of time restraints. However, if you guys want to do another game, I'm going to post up another Burning Wheel game and see who wants to be in, where we're going to explore the fight mechanics more, because I want to go through each one of the optional rule sets to see which ones I like, which ones I don't. I'm a big fan of the fight rules right now, but they are kind of complicated. So I may just do something like a one-on-one session where I do a duel with somebody inside like a court between two duelists or something like that.
Right.
Once the camera's light flash fades, it comes back to this all-white screen, and we start to realize that it's a snow flurry. And out of this flurry comes these huge men, one quite a bit bigger, and that's definitely Lord Gunn. The next biggest man comes up on his right. That's Magnus. And then the hairy, smelly, greasy guy next to him, who has those character traits, and he's just absolutely disgusting, comes up next to Magnus. And Magnus, you kind of have to hold back vomit. Like, you've smelt decaying flesh on the battlefield that smells better than this guy. And then we see the House Carls kind of come up behind. There's about 24 total soldiers, and you can see the fortress of, let me find it again here, the Song of Winter in front of you. It's a broken fortress that has these tabards with elven markings on these black flags with silver embroidery. You can see that there are elves along the patrol wall. Now, we talked about this beforehand. Approaching the castle, there are some skills that that Magnus can roll that will allow him to add details to the story. They're called wises. Magnus, this would be a good opportunity for you to do like fortress wise. So you can tell me a little bit about this fortress, and then you could also fork in something like, or sorry, not fortress wise, tactics. So you can figure out how to get in. You can fork in fortress wise, which will give you a bonus die. Marquise can help out with elf wise, and Arn, if he wanted to, could also help out with like forest wise, because there's a forest that's around there, or any other skill that you guys think makes sense. That's just kind of the easiest path to get the most stuff out of everybody working together. And Lord Gunn will provide a bonus for rating. He has rating wise.
Dope. So I feel like if we're doing that, then Lloyd should roll, and then Nico would like share like the forest info, since that'd be the first thing. Then I would share the elf info, and then Lloyd would come in with the tactics at the end, like taking in what we said to kind of formulate the strategy. Absolutely.
So, Nico, let's kind of start off with you giving us a detail about the forest. What in the forest can work to your advantage, and what can work against you? You have a lot of free reign on this, so feel free to go a little crazy with it.
I think I'd note the positive features of the forests around, that they can hide our larger force as we approach, which is handy for us. Though there is superstitions around the elfin forest, so I'm not sure if like that would counteract that. But there's plenty of trees, smaller ones that can be used to cut for spears or to make ladders from. And there's like enough, like sufficient dry wood about that we can like keep small campfires as we journey toward this. So we've been able to keep warm and in decent health than we would have compared to when we were running for our lives over the last week from Rolfstad. So maybe we've kept warm and hardy at night from the benefit of the forest. The negative of it would be that maybe in the ancient times around the fortress, it was cleared by a tactician. So it kind of abruptly ends. And that's
okay.
What causes him to suck at his teeth.
Yeah, I like that. For Stienar, what details about the elves that you want to let us know that you can use to your advantage and that can cause problems for us?
He looks around, and he was walking beside Magnus as he does so, and he kind of sucks his finger and puts it into the wind, and he sees which direction that the flurry is blowing now, and he says as he does so, "Now, elves are singers, and they're spiteful folk too. Some elves will go downwind, some elves will go upwind, and elves that are upwind will sing curses at you, and elves that are downwind will do the same. They'll be fake, and they will bait you, and they will slaughter you as you turn around." What I'm trying to get at is the elf before you is not the threat. The elf behind you that you cannot see is the threat, and there's always an elf behind you.
Okay. With that in mind, Lord Gunn kind of looks over the fortress, and He points towards the gate. The gate's been heavily reinforced. There's no clear way through there. Axes will do no harm, at least that will count. They have two boiling points up above in a tower. He points over to these kind of open slits inside a tower right above the door. You can tell that the elves are working boiling oil inside there that is meant to drop on people that come through there. You know from experience that will kill most people or horribly maim them, so it's not a good idea to go that way. The front of the fortress is also kind of a wedge shape, so it's really a death trap. It's slightly downhill so that once the boiling oil falls, it will flow down towards anybody that's coming in behind. He points out a few more like arrow slits inside the building, and looking at some of the stuff that Arn pointed out, he points over to this dead tree that's across like the back side of the fortress, and it's just leaned up against the wall, and the top of the wall is broken a little bit from the weight of this old tree. Now, not all the men will fit up there, but a small team, and he kind of looks towards Magnus, could make it up there, while the rest cause distraction. There's enough safe places that we can harass and harry them.
Yeah, so Magnus kind of takes the fortress in. He knows about castles, and he knows that most of the castles in this stuff are not made by men, but by giants a long time ago. And this fortress, if you could call it that, was probably once more of an outpost, but its scale is so large because it was made by giants. And so he knows that many of the choke points and things like that are bigger than they would be in a normal castle, and that can work to your advantage. It's harder to like defend these huge gateways that were made for giant creatures. So that's one thing he notices. He also then knows that these, because they're made for much bigger creatures, the walls are much tougher and thicker. The rocks are huge, and the bricks and stuff that have fallen away are enormous. But he thinks that the tree, that's a good approach, since the wall is like lower there and a little bit more broken. If they could like cut a few, excuse me, switches into ladders, they might be able to scale up in that direction. And we could have a token force of a couple of men standing at the front, or making busy in the forest, lighting fires and stuff like that to make them think we're coming from there.
Absolutely. So you can roll your tactics with a bonus of 4 because of everybody helping out.
Okay.
And the way that this roll is going to effectively work is this is going to be to get us over the wall and into the fight kind of thing. If you do well, it's going to determine how much into the fight you guys get. Okay. A super good roll will mean you guys are able to corner the elf that has your brother's sword. He's the leader. If you take him out, you'll break their morale kind of thing.
Gotcha. So I used my fate already, right? So I don't have that now to use?
You did use a fate earlier. You chose to embrace one of your instincts.
Yep.
To insult him after he was being kind of putting on airs and stuff. So I'm going to say that you were able to get another, let me just double check it, another fate point.
Okay. So that's Artha, right?
So, yeah. You have, well, Artha would be the persona. Fate means that you can roll to where your 6s explode. Okay. If you're already inside the roll, close out of that.
Okay.
If you want to make your 6s explode, there's a little box next to the 4. If you click that.
B? Is that what you mean?
There's
the F?
Tactics, a D6, B4, and then an empty box.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Click on that. Yep. And then now hit the D6.
Right. And then I'm getting 4 here.
You get a bonus of 4.
Yep. No Artha. And then obstacle?
The obstacle is going to be, let's see, it is kind of difficult to get up the tree, but it's not impossible. You talked about building some ladders, so that will help. You are also working to get past guards that are patrolling, some seen and some unseen. So I'm going to say that your total will be an obstacle of 6. It's pretty difficult. The good part is your total dice is 8. So let me double check the chart here, but I think that counts as a difficult roll for you. Yes, it does.
Okay. All right, let's pray to the Allfather. Ooh.
Excellent. So the next scene is kind of like this almost montage, like the thematic Viking music starts up and we see you guys spreading out into the woods. Fires are starting and there's like a close-up of a Viking striking stone to silver. And the smoke screens start going up. The elves begin volleying arrows out towards the fire pits. You can see a couple of elves flood out and over the edge using rappelling cables to go down the side of the wall instead of through the front door. Once the elves hit the ground, they begin singing, and it's this ancient song that kind of hurts when you hear it. They're far enough away that it's not affecting you, but you, Magnus, Stienar the Skald, as a man versed in song, you know that they're singing a song that strikes fear in the enemies. It's the Song of Sorrow. If an elf was to sing that nearby, there's a chance that, according to legend, that man will hesitate, fall to the ground, weeping in front of the elf as the elf slaughters them.
Stein is going to hurriedly spread this information. He actually grabs Arn by his shoulder and pulls him to him, and he says, "Do you hear that song? Do you hear that song? If that song comes closer to us, if these men hear it, their hearts will be consumed, my friend. We must stop it if they get close." Does Arn respond? And Arn has fled. Arn has been possessed by fear.
Let's see if we can get him back in here.
And he's back. Did you get what I said, Nico?
Sorry, man. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, it was like blurry, digital, all went roboty very quickly, and then I could see you guys moving and couldn't hear anything. And then I spoke, you obviously couldn't hear me.
The TLDR was that basically I grab you by the shoulder, and the skull basically tells you that if they get close, the song will possess people's hearts. So we have to kill them as the elves approach to make sure they don't hear it.
But we have no ranged. Well, I've got my shield out, but I look about myself. I've got nothing to like hurl at them from a range, and look about to the other warriors that came with.
You've got two men with you that are bowmen that have come up the side, and they're providing you guys cover as you guys hit the wall. And I think thematically, the bowmen open up on this elf that pops up from the wall from a blind side from you guys. They just wheel around and snap fire across at him. The elf takes two arrows. It's not down, but it's been injured. That's when the Skald is like, "Don't listen to their song. Their song will kill us all," kind of thing. And you notice that elf that came up on the blind side.
Hearing the Skald shout that, Magnus will begin like stomping his axe into the ground and start like a rhythm and begin singing like a battle chant as loudly as he can. He's like screaming. There's no, almost tuneless, but he's just like just
when
a little.
When he starts
banging his shield.
When they start doing that, can I use my my musical composition skill to actually start turning this into like a counter song, like a music that actually works, that kind of elevates us above it, or like blocks ideas or whatever?
In the rules, no. Is my answer as a GM. I like that a lot. I think that's a creative way to try and counter the songs of the elves.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just going to reduce their obstacle whenever they used it against you.
That's fine.
Sounds good.
So I'm going to say you would get at least 1 point extra from the help from them chanting discordantly with you.
So it's going to be musical composition. I'm going to fork in my sing and my elf wise to it, assuming that's okay, since what I'm trying to do, basically. So it's +3. And what's the obstacle I'm looking for?
These elves sing at a 5, so...
Ooh, it's going to be difficult. Ooh, nope,
Okay.
-1.
Your successes, though, are going to reduce their obstacle. So now when you guys need to make a steel test, instead of an ob 5, it's going to be an ob 1.
Dope. And I imagine what it looks like is that the Skald is actually listening to the sounds they're making. It's really hard to salvage it, right? Because these Vikings are tone deaf. it's almost
Right.
impossible to turn these screens. But he knows enough battle chants to kind of construct something for me. He begins to sing an actual song. Tales of Ragnarok, tales of Thor, tales of how Loki's been defeated and all kinds of stuff like that. To just kind of like buoy the soldiers' hopes and everything.
So I'm trying to remember the name of the Vanir. It's the Vanir for revenge.
You're killing me. Hang on.
It's not Tyr, is it?
No, Tyr's an Aesir.
Yeah. I forget the name.
Starts with a V, I think.
Yeah, I forget the name, but I think the chant that you begin is kind of the story of that Vanir, and his like consumption for revenge, which is something that Magnus can get behind. Volley. And after a few moments, you guys begin chanting together and kind of rallying and bolstering each other. Another thing that you can do as the Skald, I'm going to say, is because we've set this up as a thematic important thing to our story, is on your turn, if you want to help by continuing the song, you can use that to provide aid to allies.
Dope.
Okay. I think Magnus is going to be the one that can close the gap between this Alfir that jumped over and just took 2 arrow shots to both shoulders. His sword is down to his side because the arrow that struck his shoulder caused his arm to drop down, and he's exposed to you, Magnus.
Yeah, so Magnus is running through the snow with his like axe in front of him. He's going to basically he knows that like the elves are dangerous in every possible way, but he's most concerned about this song. So he's going to try and take the butt of his axe and just smash the face of the elf, ruin the mouth, and hopefully it'll spit blood instead of curses.
Okay. So here's an interesting thing about combat inside Burning Wheel. You actually mechanically can use the butt of your weapon to attack people. It does way less damage than the axe blade will. Just as a heads up, you may want to use
okay. Yeah, I guess like mechanically I'll use that, but like story-wise it's like smash.
Yeah, like I could see you doing like a smash and then a slash with it.
Sure.
But like the axe head would have to be involved for me to be like, it's an axe head attack.
No problem. So then axe.
So we'll do the axe skill. Your odd is going to be 5 when dealing with them.
Mm-hmm. I don't have any modifiers, I don't think, here.
No. You do have 1 from the song.
Oh, 1 from the song, yes. And my up skill is going to be 5.
Anything else you can. He does happen to be a soldier, so you could use soldier.
I was just going to say soldier-wise. Sweet.
That's 2.
All right, so 2. And then it's 5 for the obstacle?
Yeah.
Okay. Not quite.
Okay, and let me consult the chart real quick, because I think that's a routine check for you. Yeah, that's a routine check if you have any routine slots. No, you don't. Okay. So you go into swing, and what kind of swing are you using? Is it like an over the top or like a cross? What does it look like exactly?
So Magnus has like this technique that he uses a lot. He like runs with the axe up above like this with the butt facing forward, and all enemies he's faced so far have assumed that's like a big hewing swing that's coming, but he gets close and then he just like hits them with the butt end and then swings down. But the elf sees it coming, it's way too quick, and it just like moves out of the way, and Magnus like overbalances a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's almost like this dance. Like he just barely shifts on his feet, and then it's like the wind moving through the trees. He's all of a sudden behind you, and he's brought his sword to bear against you. Let me do his roll here. You can defend against this if you want. You can use your own skill, essentially. I gave you the first one as kind of a surprise, but essentially when we do combat like this, we're rolling against each other and stating what our purpose is.
Okay.
So his purpose is to skewer you with the pointy end of the sword.
Right.
He wants to cause pain. He doesn't want to kill you.
Okay.
Because elves are vindictive assholes.
Yep. So I guess my purpose is not to get stabbed.
Well, you could turn around and you could either say, I don't want to get stabbed and I'll defend, or you can turn around and say, you know what? Nope, I'm taking him down. And you can just straight go for it.
Okay.
You could even say that your purpose is to counter him, and then
I'll tell you that wounds and burning wheel, like take like the Iskloff wounds, right, and then make them last for months at a time. So if you get stabbed in the gut, it's no bueno for the rest of the session, my Jarl.
Right. Okay. Well, Magnus is a killer. He's a wolf, and so his instinct would not be to dodge; it would be to kill. So that's what would be my objective.
So he has a 0 successes. So you get to roll yours. He thrusts in, and Magnus has seen this kind of sword move before. It's meant to be like this thrust that's close to your face, but the actual strike is him dragging the sword back across your face.
Okay.
And Magnus just kind of moves his head slightly out of the way, and the blade just kind of sings past his cheek.
Yeah, cuts a bald patch into the beard, but not quite into the skin. Am I rolling an axe attack now?
You can.
Yep. Okay, sweet. That's what I'll do.
Like I said, you can use any skill you want. Just tell me how you want to use it, and then we'll figure out what happens there.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the axe, and I still have Soldier-Wise and the song, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have 0. And obstacle is
5 still.
5 still, okay. Oh, no, this guy is too quick. Magnus can't get him.
Yeah, and Magnus goes in for the swing, and the elf sword arm, as he pulls back from that strike, you can see his wrist just whip around unnaturally, and he parries your axe, which is just an unbelievable move of skill to do with such a thin blade. Arn, this is your chance. Magnus has done kind of a practice maneuver where he's lowered himself a little bit, and you know that this is kind of the Rolfstad like switcheroo is what you guys call it, or something like that, where you can kind of come in behind him and get into the fight yourself. So Arn, you're next.
I think Magnus has better chance of killing the elf, or maybe even Gunn, an elf, than myself. So I'm going to rush in, and instead of flanking, I'm going to move up kind of to the sides and harry with my shield, trying to like distract or disorientate the foe, but also to try and cover Magnus, because like that's my job in the shield wall. I stand in front of him and shield off the enemies while he hacks death down upon them, like with his like massive axe. So I'll just like hold the axe ready, but I'm more buoying my weight into the shield and trying to harass the foe and defend my lord.
Okay, so I'm going to say that is a shield training check. You can fork in axe. You're going to get 1 because you guys are forming a shield wall, and I think that's appropriate for Iskloft, even though that's not a real rule. So that's going to be 3 right there.
Since he's facing off against a sword and he has a sword skill, could he fork in sword?
I don't have sword, I've only got axe.
I
But
thought you had sword too.
But Lloyd can fork in sword because he does have sword.
Nice.
So is that meant to be 4 then?
Yeah, 4 because of the song too. So,
Sorry.
and I think this is going to basically open him up to another assault if it works. He's going to attempt to strike out at Magnus, but you've kind of inserted yourself in the way, so his strike will be coming in towards you now.
Okay.
You were able to beat him by 3 successes. So what I imagine is like you've come in and you've inserted your shield just at the right moment to deflect over his sword, and he goes in for another one of those like purposeful stinging strikes, and because your shield deflected him, his wrist turns kind of unnaturally, and you just pop the shield into his chest, ramming the rim into like his solar plexus, and the elf kind of doubles down a little bit. And this is when Lord Gunn comes up, and he has this huge greatsword. It's the kind of family sword that Magnus is searching for. And Lord Gunn just swings around and just lops this elf's head off now that it's been exposed. He kind of hesitates for a moment, dropping into a defensive stance, looking around for the next elf because of what the Skald warned them against. And everybody is deadly quiet for just a moment to make sure that there's no other singing. And then the song starts again with this thump, thump, thump. Back into the Song of Valley and the Song of Revenge. How how would you guys like to handle navigating your way through the fortress?
The boar's head. We get all the men and we make a sort of triangle with our gnarliest warrior in front, which I would like to think is Magnus, but probably Lord Gunn. Make a sort of triangle, and we can just like hopefully just smash through whatever's in the way. It's like an augmented shield wall.
Yeah, Lord Gunn's actually okay with you being the point of it because Lord Gunn can switch to sword and shield because he's got a smaller sword. He locks up, and Arn takes the other side to kind of provide a shield wall for you. And then I imagine that that the Skald is inside the back, continuing the rhythm of the song and trying to get them to realize what pitch means.
Yes, he's also like in between like giving these guys like tutoring lessons on singing. He's also like looking like in the shadows as we move through, and like in all the cooks and nannies to make sure we don't get ambushed and fucked from behind by these Alfia.
Perfect. Arn has the skill that he could use to kind of keep you guys quiet, stealthy. If he wants to roll for the group, you could also help out with like fortress wise, but you guys would have to stop singing if you want to go stealth. Just to give you a heads up.
Yeah, I don't think we can hide this like 24 men in mail and war gear.
There's about you guys, Lord Gunn, and 2 archers that are with you. The archers are also in the back with Stienar. That's the small contingency that went over the wall. Everybody else is kind of like harrying the elves from the outside of the castle.
But the song stops the elf sorrow, which the Skald, who's smarter than me, told me will defeat us. So it's not worth stopping singing, I think.
Okay. I bring it up because it's an option. It's totally up to you guys how you want to handle it. So I think kind of... Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I think we kind of montage through you guys going through halls, kind of clearing them out. What I'd like for you to do is tell me, Magnus, would you pick up one of these Forsaken Elf Blades, or would you continue with your axe?
That is a tough decision to make. It's definitely going to be very useful, but I don't think so. I think Magnus is convinced that there's witchery afoot, and that if he picks one of those things up, it could curse him, or they might mess with his mind, and so he's going to stick with Viking Castleford steel.
Okay. So you guys begin kind of going through the hallway, and there's a couple more elves that get struck down by your unit as you move together as a group. The archers open volley whenever one of them pops around a corner. And there's like this scene where we see you guys in probably the worst scenario. It's kind of like this open courtyard to you, but it's really just a staircase to the giants that built this place. And there are elves that are on the staircase, some that snuck up behind you. And then there's another one that's like confronting your group. And through a bloody battle, you guys are able to take them down. If you guys want to pick one skill to roll, we'll kind of narrate how this little montage fight scene works. And you guys have complete free reign. So if you want to like swing from chandeliers, cut people's throats, kick them in the chest, whatever you want to do, totally fine.
So Magnus then would take note of the fortress and the construction. He would use his fortress wise to like see that there are defenses here that he can use to their advantage. So he would like see that there's like a scaffolding that's not quite complete, where they've been trying to rebuild, and he would just like rush towards like one of the splinters of wood and just like shoulder block it, smashing through, and hopefully it would like collapse a bunch of debris and stuff onto some of the elves standing nearby.
Okay. I think that sounds like you are using one of your stats, which would be power, and you're forking in fortress wise. So you can click on the box, the little die next to power.
Yep.
And let's see, you have. It will be a 5 for the obstacle.
Okay.
Keep in mind that you do have another fate point you can use to open that up if you want to do open 6s again.
Yeah, that's probably a good call.
Okay, so I'll drop your fate point pool down to 0.
Yep. And then I have a +1 modifier for fortress wise, right?
Correct.
Okay. And did you say 6?
It's a 5.
A 5, okay. Nope.
That's all right. It does count as a challenging check for you. So
Okay.
underneath power, you can click the one for challenge. So you are closer to leveling up your power now.
Here?
Yep, that one right there.
Yep.
The wood creaks underneath you, but it's not quite enough. If someone was to aid you, between the two of you, you could break it down. And I think Lord Gunn is the one who's going to figure it out. He charges across and he just smashes his girth into the beams with you. And there's like this moment where you two kind of lock eyes, and the bolstering and the showmanship that was in the hallway kind of fades away as you two push with full might into the staircase, and we hear the board snapping for the support beams, and the staircase drops with these elven archers that were above you now falling to the floor, and ultimately their deaths.
Perfect.
Next, Arn, how would you like to handle the situation?
I've got my eyes locked on the archers up above, and I'm running, covering with my shield, Magnus, as he like hefts at the beams, trying to like catch any arrows I can on my shield, so that if need be, I can pull them out to use the elf metal heads upon a foe. So shield is what I'll roll.
Okay.
And can I use, I don't know if this works, but can I use slavery wise? Like I'm so subservient to my, because I'm a thrall, like I've exposed myself to danger, like exerting myself.
Yeah, I think so, because Magnus is a warrior, so he has higher rank in society. So I think that would be fine.
It's important strategically too. But I don't have anything like that, so I'll just roll with 1 boost, 1 modifier.
Okay, perfect. So I imagine that you've deflected a couple arrows, and there is that opportunity for you to rip an arrow free and hurl it at another elf that's close by.
Oh, I don't want to hurl it at them, just like keep it in the shield for now, for later.
Okay. So you collect up a couple arrows on your shield with this tactical mind of using them to your advantage a little bit later. The archers that are with you open up on the ones that sprang up in the back. One of them gets overpowered and is taken out. The first guy drops his bow and grabs a sax that's in his boot, and he just rams it in between the elf's ribs, but then gets tossed aside by this elf of kind of unusual strength for how lithe he is. Next up is Stienar. There we go.
So the reason elves are so strong is not just because they live for aeons or because they have twisted minds that we can't predict. It's because the songs give them otherworldly powers that humans can't even begin to grasp. And these songs will always turn the battle against everyone else. When that fated fight happened, where I think his name was his name, Rolf, that died, our old leader, when he died, the reason we were able to kill and ambush that elf is because Stienar the Skald realized the verses, how they worked, how they fit together, how they all kind of came together. And he realized that you could easily trick an elf by simply saying the verses back to them. They become confused. They think you're going to be using the song against them. And you can't use the song, of course. You're just a lowly mortal. But it causes them to hesitate for a second. And in that split second, the song's effects are broken. So that's what I'm getting at. So I'm trying to use poetry to basically recreate these verses, interrupt the songs, and give the men chances of moving and the lulls to kill them. I'm going to be forking in the musical composition, elf-wise, and sing into that.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so it's going to be +3. Submit. So what's my obstacle?
It's gonna be an ob 5.
Ob 5, same as all that. Okay. Oh my gosh, I had 10 dice for that, and I got 3 successes.
That would be a routine check for you, if anything. Yeah, you work against their songs. They are singing songs that basically are giving them extra strength in this battle, so that they can deal more damage to you and hopefully kill you quickly. They're not singing the ones that make you hesitate. in this song, instead of feeling like a weird kind of creeping sensation of death is upon you, you have like this sense of awe, like there's something unholy about them. The runes that are engraved on their flesh glow slightly kind of a bluish white as you look upon these elves, and their form looks stretched and taut, as like the very thin muscles that elves normally have are swollen up with the power of this song. As the song continues, you see Lord Gunn turn around and he takes his one-handed sword and he just hurls it across the room at the one that threw the archer. It embeds itself into the elf's chest, and the elf is kind of stunned but still standing. It's the last one in the room. Magnus, this has opened it up for you to finish off the elf. No roll needed. We're going to let it ride from what you did. Basically, how Let It Ride works is once you roll something, you decide that that's how it goes for the rest of the scene until the situation changes. So we're not going to keep re-rolling the axe moves and stuff like that.
Okay. I guess seeing the sword like kicked into or thrown into the elf, Magnus would like run up close and just try and like kick the sword deeper into the elf, if that's possible, or like smash it with his shoulder or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I like kick. Yeah. We'll go for it.
Yeah, so he would just like sprint up and then like
the traditional like, fist pommel on it. So there's like a good part for you to kick.
Yeah, and he would just like unexpectedly like leap up into the air and like throw himself knee first towards the sword and hopefully drive it all the way through this hated creature. So what do I need to do? Power again?
No, we're just gonna let it ride. So you kick the sword in, and the creature like stumbles back, and it actually pins against a wooden door, and you can see the muscles start to like relax, and the runes on his body just lose that glow that it had as the creature breathes its final breath. You can hear it whispering elf curses at you, though.
I think
I would like a deal test.
Oh yeah, okay.
About elf curses here.
Shit, son. Okay, so I'm good at steel.
Yeah, you're pretty nasty when it comes to steel.
All right, so I will roll that. Yeah. So no modifiers, no extra. And what's the obstacle?
Your obstacle is 5. It is automatically open-ended, by the way.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, I see that. Cool.
After you do open-ended checks, you have to uncheck the box, by the way. I'm just unchecking the 2 that you did before.
Okay. Ugh.
Okay. So you have this brief moment of hesitation as you kind of feel yourself petrified with the fear of you have no clue what this elf whispered. There's that feeling that every Viking knows when he's being cursed and witchcraft is afoot. Like he can feel it in his neck and beard, and it's just there's that tingle of electricity flowing through your body. You have no idea what the power of the elves are. You don't know if you're cursed, but you definitely think you are at the moment.
So then, seeing that he's dying and he has cursed me, what I will do is reach out for like the dying face and like pry open the mouth and like take a dagger from my belt and cut out the tongue, if that's possible.
It absolutely is. So I am going to add a trait to your character that can be removed eventually. We're going to call it Elf Cursed. It's a character trait.
Yes.
Basically, when this fight is over, like people are going to know that you were cursed by an elf. Whether that actually has any value in the game, like if it statistically makes you worse or not, is a whole different thing.
But it follows me.
Yeah.
That's rad.
So I could have done it as like a die trait, which basically means that legitimately I'd pick one ability and say that ability is always one obstacle higher. But I think it's a lot more fun for the setting as a character trait because it's a social problem now instead of a
for sure
dice problem. All right, so with that in mind, the combat here kind of lowers, and you guys have managed to take care of most of the threats within the castle, but there's this low song being sung from the center of the castle. Stienar, you're closest to a window, and you can see into the courtyard. There's this elf that has this huge greatsword that you've recognized. It's the sword of Rolf the Witch Breaker. It's buried in the ground. It has glowing runes. It's reacting very violently to the fact that this elf is singing. And the elf is attempting to hone himself into that blade to turn it into a cursed weapon.
What do I know about cursed weapons, like from poetries and songs and everything?
You know that that the people of Iskloft, that are sometimes referred to as Vikings by foreigners, they have the ability to hone magic into their weapons through rune and practice and religion, sacrifices to the gods and things like that. Rolf's sword is one of those. It's part of the reason he's known as the Witch Breaker. His sword is especially potent against mages and witches. The sword itself, if it was turned and became a cursed blade, it would become even more powerful. It's the kind of blade that would be wrought in sagas and songs. In fact, you probably know a few sagas of Rolf the Witch Breaker when he was a young man. Like a song where he vanquished an ancient witch to the south that was plaguing the land with locusts and things like that. It's said that this blade was christened with her blood, and the runes were ignited and became magical that day.
And who's the closest person to me?
I think the closest is probably the archer that got thrown aside. As far as players are concerned, probably Arn.
Skyn is going to pick up the archer by his hair and like basically thrust him at the window and point, like, wordlessly telling him to fire, so that way they can try to enter the ritual. And as he does, he's going to turn to Arn and is going to shout to him, "I found your father's brother's sword."
Magnus, you'll hear it too.
Yeah, so he's kind of like shook from the curse, and he's like busily like pulling the tongue out of this elf in the hope that it'll somehow cancel the curse. But hearing that, he just like throws the tongue on the ground and turns. Where?
And Stienar turns and he points out the window and says, "There, and the elf that killed Rolf too."
He like looks up at the sky. "Thank you, all Father. This will either be the moment of my death or the moment of my glory. Perhaps both." And I'll start running.
Yeah, there's a side door that you can cut into that will take you to the courtyard. The archer begins to line up shots to cover fire. Lord Gunn will actually pick up the bow of the fallen archer and also continue to provide cover fire, knowing that this is basically your test, that Lord Gunn really can't interfere. As you get into the courtyard, the elf sees you, and he reaches out and grabs the blade. You can see it licking his hand with this magical energy. The blade itself wants to destroy the elf. It hasn't been turned yet, but the elf is using it anyways. You can see sears and burns up his arm as he wields this thing, and once he grabs it with two hands, his hands become completely black all the way up to about his elbow, and it just kind of burns back on his arms. You can tell that the longer he holds this and it's not cursed, the worse it's going to become for him.
I'll call out as I see him. I'll point the axe, holding it by the head. "That blade is made to kill you, to cut your head from your body, to tear the heart from your chest, and I will see it done."
The elf responds back in Elven, and Steinar's the only one who gets it, aside from the audience who sees the sub-captions. And the elf says, "This blade was cursed with my mother's blood to kill my brothers. This blade has always belonged to the elves. I am returning it to the elves." And he kind of braces himself for the fight. We do not have enough time for the fight mechanics. I would definitely use them. We're just going
Yeah.
to use the skill rolls and stuff.
That's fine.
So he's going to go in to strike you, and as I mentioned before, elves have a character trait that's too specific to elves in general. That's vindictive, is what I'm calling it. Essentially, he will go for maiming strikes before he goes for a kill. And he begins to slash out at you. And this one would be one that is designed to cut at the back of your leg and immobilize you. He swings in, and I've got his number now. So how do you want to handle that as his blade comes to the back of your right leg?
I guess Magnus's normal thought process would be, this guy is probably, not as burly as me, but he's seen the unnatural strength of the elves. He would have like grabbed him and tried to wrestle, but he doesn't think that's wise. So he's going to just try and step back out of range. So basically defend, I think, like jump back, because he thinks he's got better reach with his axe than he has with the sword.
Okay. The sword's actually a longer weapon than the axe is. So as you jump back, I think that's going to be a speed test versus his result. His result was a 6. So for you to make that, you're going to have to spend points, fork in, or get some help, because you only have 4 die going into your speed right now.
Okay, so I can definitely use sword.
You absolutely can.
Could this guy be a soldier? Maybe tactics would work?
Yeah, he's a soldier. Tactics is more of like
battlefield tactics?
Warcraft. Yeah.
Okay. So then I would have 2 extra, so I'd have to roll. Jesus, it's not going to happen, is it?
This is a courtyard, but there's like stuff around here, like a cart and stuff like that. I would say you could probably use Fortress Wise to try and like put something between the two of you.
Yeah. And possibly axe in an attempt to like buffet the blow to the side.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like you could use intimidation too if you really wanted to be honest.
Yeah.
That'd be +5.
He has not started saying, by the way. I should point that out.
Okay. Yep. Okay. So let's go with that. And the number is 6, you said?
Yeah. You have 4. You got a 4 modifier so far? No, sorry. 5.
I think we end up with,
5 is what your total is right now. For the Scald, is the song still going?
Yes, it is. So I guess 6 modifiers.
Oh boy.
Because I'm counting that as a morale bonus.
Okay, and then obstacle is 6. All right, don't fail me now.
10 against his 6.
Yeah.
All right. With 5, he is able to strike out at you. There's a second page on here for combat. I went ahead and switched you over to it. Without getting it super deep into the details, essentially, strikes are considered, there's 3 types. There's a, I forget what the I is now. A light wound, a medium wound, and a strong wound.
Basically.
I know M is midi, but I forget what the other 2 are. Okay. If you look at like Footman's Axe, you have 4, 8, and 12 there.
Yeah.
He has a pretty potent sword. When he strikes at you, he's actually going to do a wound to you.
Okay.
So let me see here. His injury is a B9. Okay, so I forgot to change the tolerances on the character sheets. Yeah, that's a good point. Let me find that real quick. Oh yeah, incidental, midi, and I forget what the S is, but
severe,
I think so. Yeah, I did not set up the combat sheet right, so that's my bad. I'm just gonna clear that out. We're gonna do it super narrative instead.
Okay.
And I'll do combat in another Burning Wheel game.
Yeah.
So he strikes at you, and he puts this big gash in your leg. I'm going to say for the rest of this fight, your speed tests or things that would be related to kind of moving around like that are going to suffer a little bit of an obstacle increase.
Makes sense.
Basically, we don't lower your die any. We just increase the difficulty of doing things.
Okay.
So, yeah, incidental, mark, and superb. I forget. They're dueling terms.
Right.
So what he did would be considered a mark to you. Or sorry, an incidental to you. It's enough that he kind of hacked in. Now, the thing about the way armor works is you have armor in each location. You happen to be wearing light mail. Light mail gives you 3 dice. You can roll those 3 die, and if you get any successes on them, that means you can deflect the blow, but his sword actually will ignore a certain portion of your dice. His sword ignores 2 die, so you only have 1 left. If you succeed, you can deflect the blow, but your armor... if you succeed, you deflect the blow. If you fail, you take damage, and your armor breaks down. That's kind of how armor works.
Okay.
So you'll have 1d6 to roll, essentially. So you can do /R 1d6.
Yep. Is it all my armor that goes down, or just that location?
Just that location. So he's going for your right leg right now.
I mean, no harm in trying.
That's a success.
All right.
So that obstacle increase that we talked about, that's not actually going to happen because your armor absorbed it. There's this ring as the light mail that's covering the back of your leg. Think of it like a gambeson that's got metal plates attached to it. It hits the back there, and you can hear the plate ring off as his sword is just barely deflected by the armor. You get a solid feeling that this man is quite skilled with a sword, because he's probably fighting penalties to use that weapon right now.
Yep, for sure. I think Magnus is nervous for the first time in many years. Like, he generally, when he has fought, has been the better warrior, and it's been clear to him in the opening moments of most duels that he's fought that he's superior, and he doesn't feel that way now. So he definitely, and with the elf curse, he's kind of got this like creeping feeling coming up the back of his neck that this might be the end. But he'll do whatever it takes to try and kill this foul creature. So he is going to all right, he's gonna try and smash like bodily into the elf and knock him. You said there was a bunch of stuff lying around, like try and knock him into some debris and stuff like that. Yeah,
definitely. So to kind of knock him down, we're gonna say that that's a power check.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna attempt to cut at you again. Again, a wounding strike to try and slow you down. More than anything, he wants to draw out this fight. He doesn't really see you as a threat just yet. So he goes in to swing, and you manage to get your shoulder in and smash into him as the two of you kind of tumble to the side. He smashes off of a cart. Let's get your power roll. Your obstacle is going to be a 7 because he got pretty good on his strike.
Boy, okay, so I could probably factor in...
I'm going to say that. So one of the things that I can do as a GM is I can say it happens, but there's a cost.
Okay.
That this is it happens, but there's a cost involved.
Okay.
So instead of a roll, what I think we should do is just say, hey, it happens. You knock him into a cart, knock him down, whatever you want to do with him.
Yep.
His sword bites into you, and you can feel this warm, burning sensation of venom. He has poisoned the blade.
Gutless coward. Yep, no problem. So I smash into him, I knock him through this debris or whatever, he falls into the cart, and I can feel like the cut. And then I'm kind of horrified to realize that it's not just the pain or the normal sting that I feel. There's like a sort of numbness following.
There's like this arcane flare that opens up from this, like, because he got you basically just underneath the collarbone there, or the clavicle. So it was a through and through. There's no real like death blow to that. But like there's like this ghost fire that comes up out of the hole. Arn, you can see it. You've dealt with poisons and things like that. Your herbalism would allow you to cure that if you could get close enough to Magnus to do it. Do we still
I don't know
have
if it'd be like fair game for me to like walk in on the duel to like apply herbs to him while he's fighting. Does that is that what I'm imagining that I'm expected to do? Like move up and put bandages on him or something?
So for your society, no, this is an honor duel. But I do want to bring up one of Arn's beliefs, which is I will prove myself to Magnus Håkansson by protecting him as family.
What's Lord Gunn doing at the moment? Is he still up here firing the bow and arrow?
Firing arrows. Like there are other people involved, but like to go in there and apply herbs to a warrior on the field would be a little embarrassing for Magnus. It's not commonly done. Like it's.
I was imagining I was still maybe up with Lord Gunn where he's firing down arrows because I'd grab those elf arrows.
Get down there if you wanted to.
Is Lord Gunn by himself?
No, he's firing out one window. The Skald is with you inside the room, kind of pointing and directing where the other person should be firing. He's working as like a spotter for the NPC archer.
Okay. I'm going to give my shield, just hand my shield straight over to the Skald. He's probably like, what? I don't use such things. But I'll be like, get the archers to use these. They may be better. And like gesture to the couple of arrows that are embedded in the oak. They might be better than our own for the archers to fire. And I'll rush towards the field of battle because I don't care about honor. If he dies, I'll stay a thrall. So like it's lose-lose. So I might as well try and save his life.
Absolutely.
And so I'll rush in. I don't really know what kind of healing I could do without magic in like mere moments.
It's
but maybe just the fact that he feels emboldened, maybe it's just like placebo that I like come in and throw words of encouragement. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an herbalism check. You happen to have the right kind of herbs. Like your character, one of his things is to always have the right herbs handy with him. He's always got herbs on him. So knowing that you guys were going in to fight elves, you've prepared packets of herbalism supplements and things like that for elf poisons, because that's
maybe I see like the type of wound that he's got and it looks strange, kind of looks like it's festering with poison already. Yeah. So I'll like put some mentholic salve or something, like splash it about the wound and like rub it to try and stimmy the possibly fatal effects of the elf poison.
Yeah, the elf has toppled back into this cart and he's sprawled out against the ground, kind of stunned as you come up, and you just like throw herbs and liquids at Magnus. Magnus, he is clearly doing what he's supposed to do, which is heal you, but not in the middle of combat.
Yeah, I think Magnus's normal reaction, and I think Arn probably expects him to turn around and be like, "Get out of here!" But this sword and this death is worth more to him than like his public appearance. And so he like looks at Arn and there's like a look of genuine like gratefulness. And he like almost does a head motion towards the elf, like, let's do this together.
Question: while they're doing that, because one of my beliefs is that I will do and say anything, right, in order to ensure my own glory. Yep. Would it make sense to basically look at Lord Gunn and to basically throw these two under the bus, right, in order to like raise myself up so I don't fall with them?
You definitely can.
All right, so I'm going to look at Lord Gunn. I'm going to look at the RJ.
While you explain that, I do need an herbalism check from Arn. You could fork in forest-wise, because that's where you got your herbs. You could also fork in slavery-wise. I think that works here.
Okay.
All right. Oh, let me see if he passed first.
Perfect.
Right.
So those 3 successes, I'm going to count those as bonuses towards Magnus's chance to not die from elf poison, because elf poison is terrible. Magnus, I need a fort check. You get 3 bonus on there to start with.
All right.
And I think that's pretty much all you're going to be able to fork into it. Yeah, I don't think you have anything that's like complete badass wise.
Intimidation. Intimidates the poison.
All right, so 3 and the obstacle 5.
Hold on a second. Actually, you might have something that you get. Iron Stomach, I believe, gives you a bonus when dealing with poisons. Actually.
Yes, it does. Illnesses and poisons.
You get, let's see here. It's a call on for fort tests. So basically, if there's a question of a tie versus this poison, you will succeed because of your call on trait.
Okay, cool. So then 3, 0, and sorry, obstacle. I've forgotten. 5.
Your obstacle is a 5 on this one. It's a pretty potent poison.
Yeah.
By the way, that was a difficult check for your fort.
Okay, so there's no do I add a pip?
Yeah, add a pip under difficult. Yep.
Okay.
So the herbs are absorbing most of this black festering stuff that's around there. It still stings, but you can tell that you're not going to be subdued by this poison. Lesser men would be struck down dead from this stuff. The type of poison that he used, it essentially it doesn't kill you, it paralyzes you, because again, elves are vindictive assholes. His intent, as most elves, is to paralyze you and then torture you just for the sheer fun of it.
I will not die while that sword is in your hand, creature.
So you were going to throw the 2 under the bus for honor?
Yes. So seeing Arn run out there, knowing that this puts me at stake now, my glory at stake, I look to Lord Gunn and the archer, and I hold up my hands and I say to them, put down the elf pharaohs. Give them no cover fire. These 2 men, they fight like they're unblooded, as if they never fought before on the fields of war, as if they never joined the din of spears. Let them fight by themselves. No help from us to prove that they're truly honorable. It's the only way to ensure that this honor duel remains true.
No roll required.
Dope.
Yeah, Lord Gunn is going to see the value of your words and lower his bow. Watching and waiting.
Nico, you cause PvP every time I do something similar.
Yeah, that's too focused into how Lord Gunn is. So he's just like, yep, you know what? You're right. I shouldn't interfere with this shit.
And then I'm just gonna look back at the window, slick my hair back, and be content that after this battle, I will have me a nice cush position as this dude's called.
And I think it comes down to the elf like stabbing the sword into the ground, using it to pick himself up off the wreckage of this cart. He's not all the way up. It's going to take him basically this whole action to stand. Magnus, this is your chance to take advantage of the fact that he's been knocked prone. So I mentioned you can kind of do whatever you want narratively. One of the things that you can do as well is like disarm him if you wanted to, just to give you an idea.
Yeah. So I guess he's on the ground. My hope would be to like run up and plant a foot in his chest, and then the other on like whichever hand is like holding the sword, or like on the wrist there, in the hopes that he would like let go. And once he lets go of the sword, I would try and grab it. Yeah,
this is kind of your traditional Germanic greatsword. So there's like that part that's like just above the crossguard that you can grip onto. So I imagine you grab it right there, and then the foot comes into plant on this guy. That would be considered a brawling check.
Okay. Do I have that?
So you would be doing it untrained. So brawling is a power thing, if I remember right. Let me just double check because Arn has it. Yeah, it's power. So you can click on your power test. Because it's something you're not trained in, his obstacle is double. Because he's not ready for the strike, his obstacle normally would be 3. It's doubled to 6.
Okay.
We'll get a bonus unless the Scald has stopped singing. Has the Scald gone that far to forsake it?
He stopped singing. He has to. These have to stay on their own honor now.
Okay, so that is. Let's see.
I could use sword, right?
You can use swords. That's one.
Soldier-wise. And soldier-wise. How about intimidation? Like I come over and stomp in his fucking chest and like shout that thing at him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You give like a feral howl at his face.
Yeah. So that'd be 3. Puts me on 7 against 6. Not looking good.
Uh-huh.
but I don't see Fortress-wise because I smashed him into that cart.
Yes, and hold on just a sec. So that's 4, and Forsaken foe has stolen my family sword. I will take it by any means necessary. You're fighting pretty risky, so I'm going to say that for that belief, you were able to get a fate point back, so you could do open d6s on this if you wanted to.
100%. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so we were at.
So that's 4. You already have your open d6s right now.
Okay, and the obstacle is 6.
Yep. So you have 8 with open d6s against the 6.
Pray.
Okay. So you punt into him, and his grip is too strong on the sword. I think you knock him back to the ground, but he keeps the sword and he wings it up to point at you. His skill is actually way more impressive than you expected. But sorry, there is a chance that someone can help you because Arn is right next to you. Arn, would you like to help?
Can I use my shield?
You gave your shield to the Skald.
Oh, of course, had the arrows in it. So I like reach for it, intending to do that, and I'm like in that moment in the movies where it's like, oh, of course. So I've just got the axe.
By the way, you gave the shield your skull, or you gave the shield to the Skald, and you went to reach for it now, so you do get a fate point for that because it went through your stuff. So you actually have like 3 fate points in a persona still. So feel free to use them, suckers.
I'll grab the axe and rush up. I guess I'm like alongside. I was alongside Magnus, but then he went against this creature. Maybe from my vantage point, I can see him like glaring over this thing, boot on hand, like ready to stab it, and the elf reaching for some like hidden lethal glass or elf metal that's like obscured from my lord. So I just like throw the axe. I'm just going to dump all my fate and fork my scouting into it as well, like hunting for food and surviving in the woods.
Yeah, you can dump your persona into it, which will give you an Artha to put inside that category, and then you open d6. So for your axe, I'll go ahead and open it for you. Go ahead and click on the d6.
Mm-hmm.
Now that it's got the little pop-up for you, let's see here. Brawling can be forked in, so that's 1. I'm going to say 1 because you're fighting in tandem with Magnus.
Okay. So 2 modifiers and 1 Artha.
And then 1 Artha. And then go ahead and roll. The target is a 3 because he's prone right now. 5 against a 3 still works. So the axe buries into him, and since you're looking to help Magnus, his hand lets go of the sword as the axe buries into the sword arm, actually, where it joins to his torso, and the sword kind of clatters to the side. He's actually at the point where he needs to make a steel test, which on 10 dice, he got 0 successes. Yeah, he hesitates. He kind of he scrambles back on his back, and after he gets a little bit further, he puts his back against kind of this broken wall where maybe a room used to be inside this courtyard, and he pulls the axe out of his body and throws it to the side. He's completely unarmed at this point, kind of cornered. Magnus, the sword is relatively close to your feet now.
Yeah, there's no question. He drops the axe close to Arn, and he runs over and picks up the sword and wraps his fingers around it.
And pure action movie moment, like Arn and Magnus, like Magnus kicks him, Arn comes around the side, throws the axe, and then Magnus rolls over Arn, grabs the sword off the ground, then wheels it over his head to take the strike at the elf. Go ahead and do a sword.
Oh, baby.
Wise works. I'll say that
intimidation, since he's cornered.
Intimidation.
So that would be an extra 3. Is there one for working in tandem with Arn?
Yeah, I'll say there's one.
All right.
I think this setting works sense to have like Shield Brother bonus.
Yeah.
So it's not in the game.
Yeah. Okay, so that'll be 4, and I don't have any other. And then the obstacles.
His obstacle is a 3 because he's prone right now. Oh, sorry, no, he is attempting to run away, but he ran into a wall. He's completely helpless. Obstacle is 1.
Oh god. Okay. Yeah. Oh wow.
That's a slaughter. That's a flat out murder.
Yeah, go ahead and explain how you vanquish this elf.
So he's like pulling the axe from his shoulder, and as he's like pulling it out, there's no like grand last sort of like I have you now from Magnus. It's just brutal efficiency, and the sword comes down into the clavicle and kind of like gets stuck when it hits the spine. And Magnus, like using that leverage further up the sword, like pulls it out. And when it like falls to the ground, he like makes sure that he takes the heart from this creature, as he said he would, and like rips it out and throws it away. And then he inverts the sword and sticks it into the elf at the very end. He looks up where he knows the Skald and Lord Gunnar, just for a second, to show them that he's done it. Well, he doesn't know any of the betrayal. And then he looks at Arn and just gives him this nod of gratitude.
Yeah, and Magnus actually has a belief that I think is going to be kind of the closeout of the end. Magnus climbs the wall with this elf skin that has been stretched over a wooden frame and branded with the seal of the Witch Breaker on it, his brother, and he holds it above the palisades to show the other men that the elf has fallen. And in the other hand, he's got the great sword of his family risen up in the air. You can hear the songs of the elves broken and howls of these Viking men from the woods as they lay into a few elves, but most of them do get away. There are pretty heavy losses on both sides. For going in pretty even, it's surprising how many of your men actually made it out alive, because typically an elf will take on 4 men by themselves. So it's thanks to your careful planning and tactics that today wasn't as severe as it could have been. With that said, we hear the sounds of fire, and it returns back into the lodge house, and we see that Magnus is sitting at the head of the fireplace to the right of Lord Gunn, his family sword resting upon the mantle of the trough fire. The Skald has taken position to the left of the Lord, and has a scroll open with poetry, and has new finery on. Next to Magnus is a young man, a warrior who has his circlet, showing that he has sworn an oath of fealty and that he is a man inside the culture. Arn Magnusson, free man and soldier to Lord Gunn. With that said, that is Burning Wheel done Isklov style. Hope everybody who watches this in the future and watched along with us had a good time with it. As I mentioned, we ran a little low. I was intending to do the fight mechanics as well. I will probably do another Burning Wheel game where we explore that a little bit more, that I'll call Playtest, just like we did for this one. And then we'll probably play out Magic after that and just see how that works. I kind of want to go slow into Burning Wheel because it's a lot, but I really like it so far. I want to toss it to you guys real quick and just kind of get your opinions about stuff, how you like the game, skills, etc., and stuff like that. And then you can tell me if you have any feedback or anything like that as well, as far as like story goes, because I don't run a lot of Iskloft, so that was fun. Let's start with the creator himself.
Yeah, I had a really good time. Really enjoyed it. I was talking to Nico before the game, and like, you played Iskloft a long time ago. I think it was like quite a long time, like a couple of years ago. It's changed a bit since then, and so like we were very frightful of elves, because now they've become like a sort of like a metaphysical threat, like a sort of spiritual threat, as opposed to like a physical one. But it was like really cool to like battle them and see. Like, the idea of the song is really good, and I'm definitely taking that and making it canon. I like that a lot.
Yeah, there's something hauntingly scary about like a bunch of elves descending out of a castle and chasing men through the woods while singing songs.
Yep, the song is super spooky. Like, it's really menacing, and I like it a lot. Burning Wheel I thought was great. Like, I really enjoyed it. I had also just before this been talking about Fate with Nico, and how aspects like are interesting, but also are like relatively easily abused. They're very vague. But I think this one does a good job where like you have a skill that is. So like for me, I had intimidation, and that in D&D you use that once when you are intimidating someone in a conversation, right? But here it's like when you're doing something that is intimidating, or you're doing, or like sword can be used when someone else has a sword, not just you. I really like the versatility in like doing the fork stuff. I wasn't fully clear on like the Artha and the exploding and stuff, but I think that'll come in time. But I do like that you have more options when it comes to taking your action. It's always satisfying that you can like boost up certain actions you want to take, because you can like decide what's important to you and then make it more likely to happen, which is great.
Yeah, there's this really good tagline that Luke uses when he introduces the fight mechanics. It's not like fight to fight; it's fight for what you believe in, and that's basically the premise of Burning Wheel.
Right.
I think it does it pretty well.
Yep, the traits are fucking great. The beliefs are fantastic. I really like both of those. I like that there's a mechanical benefit to having.
One of the things you mentioned that I like that's interesting is the more you fork in, the bigger your dice pool becomes, and the easier the roll is compared to. So like I can put you against something like an elf who's got just fucking badass stats, but if you fork enough stuff, he becomes comparable to you.
Yep. And it's like a little tactical mini game almost, right? You're trying to see like what you can use and how you can use it, and other people's skills and stuff. I really like that about it. The combat seems really scary, which I like. Like, we didn't do the wound, but I saw that there's a pretty intense wound system, and I'm like, okay, that's me sold. And like, obviously we didn't do any magic in this, but I think it works really well for this kind of setting, like a low magic setting. It worked really well.
Yeah, there's a couple things that if I was to do Iskloff proper that I'd probably reskin. I mentioned before the game there's they call it stock, which is your race. There's one called Great Wolves that I would use as berserkers. Dwarves have rune magic, which I would make the magic of men. That way they could have like rune carvers and stuff like that.
Yep.
Faith is another magic of men. Sorcery is one, which would be like witches for the setting. The elves, obviously I would use dark elves for all elves, period, because they're pretty vile and terrible. Dwarves, I would probably twist them a little bit and make them more of like the Viking interpretation of what dwarves were. But the cool thing is dwarves have like an emotional stat called greed, and they can become consumed by it, which really fits well with like a Viking legend. So Nico, what did you think?
Similarly, I liked the synergy and like stacking of stuff that complements each other, like brawling and axe, or like just different things that complement each other, which kind of makes sense. You can like reinforce what you're good at based on like your peripheral skills, which is an interesting concept. As for like the diplomatic mechanics, I don't like those in any kind of games, and this was like no different for me with that. I feel like it stifles roleplay and dialogue when it has to be mechanized, and it like definitely diverts the flow. It does make arguments more structured, and so makes more sense format-wise. But I don't know if it's worth. I don't know if it's worth it. That's but like purely like a bias of my own though, and I remember talking the same kind of thing with Marquise after playing Subari, using the diplomacy rules for want of the actual title, in that setting as well. I still haven't come across something that I think that perfectly fits for that kind of thing. But as far as the mechanics of the other interactions with the conflicts in the game go, they worked really well, and I really enjoyed them. So it's more like a personal distaste for those kinds of rules for diplomacy than actually Burning Wheel. You know what I mean? Because I really don't have any idea about it more now than when I started anyway. As far as like wrapping my head around the mechanics or anything, I feel like it'd be the same with everything though, right? Like after a couple of times playing, it would become second nature. So probably less stifled in the like diplomatizing and stuff like that. But that would be my
like if you don't
feedback on it.
like the cool thing too is if you don't like the Duel of Wits, it's an optional thing.
You don't need it.
Like
Yeah.
One of the things about like those mechanical duels is that like
what if you say the right thing? What if you like open your conversation and say the right thing, and then it's like, oh, you've got to roll to see if you can convince someone. I don't know. I don't really like stuff like that.
Like we play games that are very dialogue heavy, right? Like we tend to play games that are very narrative and dialogue heavy, and so I'm definitely used to just like literally having the conversation in character with the other character and like having the argument that way. But I think like if you're not as well versed in that, or like if you're new to role playing games, or you don't like, I think it can be really helpful to have like an idea of what it might look like, you know, how an argument might go.
I think it's especially helpful for people that aren't like the actor type players, like people that really get into the character and think like their character, because it provides kind of a structure for you to think like your character.
That's true, actually, yeah, because like you know, you might be really charismatic, or your character have really good charismatic skills or dialogue, but you don't. And in a game, maybe that shouldn't inhibit you. Like, you know, I might go play a barbarian. There's no way I could kill 100 people with an axe, but in the game, I can roll a dice to have it be done. So maybe it's like, yeah, that's something for me to think.
What I also like about it is that it helps guide the conversation too. Like some of the things that I said in this Duel of Wits, I could only say because Chris would bring them up, and I could play off of what Chris was doing. And like being able to do the volleys add a lot of dynamicism to everything, right? It makes it feel very fluid as it goes through. So
what I really liked about the volleys was like, if you went before me, I had prepared a rebuttal in my head. And then you say something, and I'm like, oh, shit, let me change my rebuttal to reflect what you just said, because I was preparing to say, like, one thing. I thought that was kind of cool.
Or, like, when you pull out the avoid out of nowhere, and it's just like, well, fuck, I can't say anything to that. You walked away.
Yeah, it was fun. Like I'll say from a GM standpoint, it was really fun trying to anticipate, like, what Lord Gunn would do in a conversation like that. And I think it might just be because of who Lord Gunn is. He's kind of arrogant. He's like, nope, you do what I say. I don't care what you say. Like the walk away in the middle of the argument, basically telling Magnus that I own you now. Like that was all, like, every interaction that I've seen with Lord Gunn is like that.
Yeah, he was very imperious.
Yeah, the Duel of Wits, it's I kind of like it because it's even playing field for GM and player. It is a little slow. I'm curious if it gets a little faster with practice. I've been watching a couple of like games of Burning Wheel where they explored it a little bit more. Combat and Duel of Wits both are a little slow to start because they use basically the same mechanic, but because you're using the same mechanic for both systems, you get it down a little faster. Like if we did combat has like 16 options instead of like the 8 that Duel of Wits does, and you still do 3 volleys or more depending on your agility, actually. So somebody who has high agility, like an elf, for example, would get a lot of actions in one turn compared to Magnus, who had like a 4 agility, if I remember right.
Yeah.
The elf had a 6, so he'd get an extra 2 things that he could do every turn, and Magnus would just have to deal with that problem. So it's interesting, at least from the combat side, but it is a little slower. I kind of enjoyed the meta talk to it as well, just because it was a little fun to kind of work out how that conversation went. But I could see that not being as fun after like 10 sessions of doing it.
Well, I also imagine, because the book talks about like how you should use like Duel of Wits and fight a lot. And so like with Duel of Wits, it's one of those things I probably use like once every few sessions, like only when it's really needed. And fight especially, just because fight is so intense. Like all the fights we had this session, none of them would have actually been worthy of the fight mechanic, except for the big one between the honor duel, right? And an honor duel like that, you don't have that every session. You have that every like 4 or 5 sessions, really. So that's when I would use those both very sparingly, is what I would imagine.
Yeah, the Duel of Wits makes sense for like when you're meetings like Lord Gunn, right? Because he's a big deal, or you're meeting somebody who's like a really big deal, and you're trying to negotiate a contract or negotiate something. But you wouldn't, I guess, use it every conversation.
I think a normal conversation, I'd kind of montage it, kind of like we did for the staircase battle, be like, all right, everybody roll something. We're going to let the results ride, and we'll just RP how it goes, and the results just kind of tell us how people accepted the conversation.
Right.
All right, Marquise, what are your thoughts?
As you know, I love Burning Wheel a lot. I think it's a very strong system. I think the more invested and the more you buy into it, the more you get out of it, which is true for all RP systems, right? But I feel like Burning Wheel, you can actually get a lot more out of it. I agree with Lloyd that the beliefs, the stats, the traits, and all that stuff, they work really well together to make a very different type of like role-playing game when compared to like D&D, or even compared to something closer to it like Fate and all that. So I like Burning Wheel a lot. I would like to play more Burning Wheel. I like to do a Burning Wheel campaign. I really, really like Burning Wheel. I want to really explore the system and get all I can from it.
I was talking to Marquise before because he was making his character, and I was like, man, I built Lloyd's character. He's a 5 life path character, whereas like, because each of you have a different number of life paths. The Thrall had 3. He was the youngest person in the party. Magnus had 5 with the most, and then the Skald had 4. Just because I wanted to see how that really makes a difference between each character. I was just sitting there like, man, Magnus is such a fucking badass. He's got all of this cool stuff. Like, I did his like sword skill is like out of control. He's got a 10 in it. Like, he's ridiculous.
I never realized how important it would be to have like a gray shade, because like when we were rolling those 10s and we'd get like 3 successes, I was dead on the inside when that happened. I was like, if I just raised the gray.
Yeah, I thought about buying gray shades, but I was like, no, let's do all black, because that's how Luke encourages people to start their campaigns and grow to gray shades. So I was like, I'll do all black and we'll see what happens. And that's why Lloyd ended up with like a black 10 instead of a black 5 for his sword skill, or instead of a gray 5 for a sword skill. Basically, how the shades work is black is a 4 forward for success, gray is a 3 forward, and white is a 2 forward for success. So on your D6, it determines what numbers count as successes for your dice pool. Like the elf actually had a gray statted sword skill.
Yeah. As for Isloft, Lloyd already knows I love Isloft because I do talk to him about it a lot. Every time I play an Isloft, I try to, because everyone when they play Isloft, they want to play a Viking or like a really like grizzled bastard and everything. So I go out of my way to try and play someone else in Isloft that would still suitably make sense, much to Lloyd's charging sometimes, I imagine. But I feel like I would at least hope that, you know, like my Skald is someone that you could see actually still being an Isloft with how he's acting and everything. More slimy, of course, but still, you know, a person you see nonetheless. But I do like, go ahead.
Like the Vikings TV show, Floki, kind of that kind of character that like purely gets by wits, and nobody can like 100% pin him down on stuff, so he kind of skates by.
Yeah, that's exactly how I mentioned like Stienar would be. So I mean, I like playing in Isloft. I like I like pushing it to its limits in terms of characters and what it can do and everything. And I think actually that Burning Wheel is quite literally perfect for this setting, right? It does everything that Isloft wants. But that could just be my Burning Wheel bias, so who knows?
It does seem to work really well. I would need to know it better before I like, make a final like judgment on it. I've only played it once or whatever, and but I think like there's definitely mechanics and stuff that I really like for it, and it seems to do low magic well, and that's like important. So yeah, I would definitely look at it as an option.
When you start adding the magic into, like, the magic can become pretty high potent magic. Like the elf magic is pretty fucking powerful. Like the songs, they can sing and fight at the same time. Like a human has to stop, wave his arms around, and do all this stuff. Like, no, an elf is like an onslaught machine. He sings, he swings a sword, he kicks you in the face. Oh yeah, his buddy is shooting arrows at you. Like,
but the good thing is that most of the spells, like even for like source and everything, it's not like you're like dropping meteors or fireballs or singing lightning bolts. It's all very subtle magic, which I think works very well for low magic settings.
Yeah,
works way better for Isloft.
Human stuff is very subtle. The elf stuff is mostly subtle, but some of them are pretty potent as far as like their effectiveness. Like the Song of Sorrow is what they started off when they descended into the woods. That's the one that can frighten people. If you are sword fighting someone that is also frightening you at the same time, like that's a steel test every round to see if you freeze up. If you freeze up, he gets to onslaught you.
Or the Dark Elf song that can make you start like killing your allies because they do some like perceived slights. That is the best. That is 10 out of 10.
Oh, talking about that, I really wanted to be up there with the archer and the Lord Gunn when I had the elf arrows, so I could stab Lord Gunn in the back of the neck with an elf arrow, and then murder the archer, so that when after the fight, when Lord Lloyd has the sword of glory and all the Huskarls of the arsehole come about, they're like, "Man, the elf killed Lord Gunn," and I'll be like, "Oh well, look, we've got a Ponage warrior who can kill elves, who must be even better than Lord Gunn." And like, really serve him, elevate him. That's why I asked if Gunn was alive, because I was going to like use my pragmatic thing to be like, maybe I sense that Lord Gunn is just going to pump Magnus over at the end and take the sword and all the glory for himself. I mean, why wouldn't he? He has like all of his Huskarls here with us, who luckily like survived for him, like a great number of them. So I was like, oh, this could be it.
Yeah, I think Magnus being in service to Gunn at the moment is not something that Magnus is 100% with.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Like it was,
and he would have rewarded me greatly.
Like, I think the unwritten deal that like Gunn would help, but Magnus would serve, kind of deal.
As long as I get my glory, I'm good. I'm straight. My lavish taste must be fulfilled.
I love that you were drinking wine after like a massacre and a battle, and like we're running for our lives from wolves, and you're just like,
I was like,
words never fail me. Look.
I was like, what's the most scald asshole thing that could be going on with you guys like in PTSD mode? It was like, I'm gonna be drinking mead and talking the good talk and see what that does.
Yeah, there's little things that I did to kind of fit the setting, like when he sings and does poetry, technically it doesn't do anything for you guys. It's a purely like RP moment. But I was like, no, with the way the culture works, I think it should give you a bonus if he's trying to inspire you. And
definitely,
I agree. Yep. Even if it's like, if you like just rooted in placebo, it still would, like, it's like emboldening, and it's like cultural, like it's part of our cultural identity and stuff. So it would be like have a positive effect whether it like is magic or not, I think.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I went with it. There's actually a lot of free reign for the GM to decide what counts and what doesn't count. One of my favorite things actually was the way wise skills worked. Like the whole fortress fight, I was like, there's a fortress and there's like 10 elves inside and there's a big badass in there. That's all I planned. When I asked you guys about what you saw that was something you could use and something that would work against you, that totally set up the entire fight. Like it was exactly the way you guys described it, because the roll for tactics went right. If tactics went wrong, I would have mainly focused on all the things that could have gone wrong that you guys just explained. And then like the tree that went over the wall would have broke when you guys tried to cross it. And now you have to go through the front door or something like that. It was a lot of fun actually to basically turn over that entire scene and be like, all right, players, fuck yourselves, go.
Yeah, I really like that you can just have the, like, I mean, Fat Merchant Wise is just an incredible name for a skill, and just like, I immediately know what that is, right? He's just like very wary of like these fucking fat bastards who like have rings in their fingers and who are like, oh, I could make you a deal. It's just like, I knew exactly what that skill was, and it's like so descriptive. It's great. Yeah,
the wises are cool. They give a bunch of ones in the book, but they're like, make up any wise you want. Like, I think it was Arn that, I think I was going to give him a wise. Let me look at the character burner here. Yeah, originally I started off with Viking wise, which is not in the book. And Arn was just going to be like, I know shit about Vikings. Yay. Kind of like soldier wise, but like it would be super specific to anytime you're dealing with a Viking or a Viking background type person, this is where it affects. I've heard of people creating wises that are a little bit power gamey, like night wise, as in like nighttime. Basically, he could fork into it anytime it was nighttime because he knew shit about how to do things at night.
Well, that's what I talked about earlier with Nico about aspects in Fate. How sometimes you can have like, you know, whatever it might be.
Genius athlete.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, athletic or like powerful or something. And it's like, okay, yeah, those aren't. But I guess it just requires players to like, you know, have some cop on.
I was going to say a little bit of that, I think, because the GM is really involved in player and character creation. Like normally, Burning Wheel forces you to do a session 0 to come together as a group, make characters, and ultimately make the world around those characters. Because I was using an established world, I could make pre-gens that made sense. with the knowledge that I have of Iskloft. So I really pulled up some of the documents that were online for Iskloft, and I kind of built stuff around, and I kind of pulled names to make sure that things worked out and sounded correct on it. But like, if we were playing a game and let's say we wanted to have a Viking group and you guys sat down and burned these characters, most of the game would be exactly kind of what I did. I looked at your beliefs, and this game is structured around those beliefs and instincts. Like, I love the fact that Arn missed the chain. Like, Arn didn't realize he was doing it. He's like, here's my shield. And he ran downstairs to go save Magnus. He forsaked one of his instincts to follow a belief. And that's ultimately what you want your characters to do, is to be able to have that conflict inside there. Which was really cool because, like, while Arn wasn't like super upfront all the time in the story, Arn was really heavy in the beliefs and instincts. He got a lot of points that he could have used for stuff. And I thought that was really cool to see that come up. I purposely wrote you guys having instincts against each other too. Like, Magnus has one that says something about like the Skald being a venomous snake, and he's lucky I don't cut his tongue out.
Yep. I'm so bummed I didn't get to like find out that you had ratted me out, because I would have literally cut the tongue out and it would have been so satisfying. What could you know?
Let me try and convince you, good lord, with a war of wits on why you should not cut out my lying tongue.
Let me just say that I wasn't betraying you. I was setting you up for greater honor, Magnus.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See what I mean?
The belief says Stienar is a serpent who knows no honor. His tongue is useful for now. He should be careful I don't cut it from his mouth.
That's what happened though in the talk with Gunnar, right? Because like Gunnar was like, "What fucking use you?" And Magnus was like, "Yeah, what good are you, you piece of shit?"
That was like acclimating. They came together on that point, and like from there the path for the friendship started. And I like the effort of like putting in tie-ins with characters before a game starts to create like just a little mini or like microcosmic drama between the characters within the greater drama. Like, so it's not just three characters plop down going to Lord Gunn's hall and then we start speaking to him. Like, there's kind of stuff, like however great or small we want to make it, going on between us as we go, which is always like interesting and like gives a little bit more like immersion for like the characters, I think, in a group. So I think if this system like that's inherent in it, then I think that's a really good positive.
It's encouraged. Like when you do beliefs and instincts, it's encouraged that at least one of them ties you to another person in the group
and puts you against someone else.
I went a little extreme. I made one of them tie you guys to each other, and then one of them put you against someone else in the group.
That's cool.
I liked that dynamic that it created. I especially like that. Like, for Arn, I didn't build him with the intent of being a shield bearer, but I really liked the way that you ended up playing him. Like, I'm a little mad at myself for not giving him more shield skill, because he was just a really cool shield bearer.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that, like, you can have that. So, like, you couldn't really make a real shield bearer in D&D, but, like, you can give this guy, like, crazy shield skills and then, like, imbue it as one of his instincts, and then, like, he actually is that, you know?
You still feel like you contribute.
Yeah.
When I made my paladin for your game, he was intended to be a defensive paladin. And he never quite felt 100%. Like, I could step in for people that were close to me, but I really liked the fact that, like, Arn got a lot of use out of that shield. It wasn't even his best skill. He could have done better as far as dice pools are concerned if he had just used his axe. But I like the way that it played out in story.
It strikes me that you can really, like, take a concept in this game, and, like, because there are, like, you can make up skills and stuff, you can really, like, hone in on the concept and really make the character you want, you know, which is, like, really nice. Like, it's something that I struggle with all the time in D&D is I want to play a lord, right? I want to play this guy who's, like, who can talk real good and, like, is kind of like impressive. And, like, that's kind of hard to do when you have, like, the options of fighter and paladin or whatever, you know?
They even have, like, life path options to actually be, like, the king of the land and everything. And, stuff like that.
Like, let's talk about Steinar's life paths, because Stienar has a really weird life path pattern to become a Skald. He started as a noble, and then what did you do from there?
So I went noble, and then he was sold into servitude, so he went to slave from noble. And then from that, he was sold again to be like a composer for poetry, because he had a talent for it. So he sold to a group as basically like a slave composer. And then he escaped from that using his skills to kind of like climb up the social rung as a Skald, to eventually become like a minstrel, essentially, and like a Jarl's court, which is where you ended up at the end of the game.
Which you could totally do by making a bard in D&D, but I like the fact that like the skill selection he has is based upon his life experiences, and that's what really builds him up. I actually really like the life paths. We were talking about recently having life paths for like D&D would make D&D a lot more interesting. The backgrounds, I think.
Yeah, for sure. It's something I loved in Fate of the Norns. Like they had those life paths options and stuff. I really loved that. And I really like it here. Like I haven't seen them, but like seeing the life path that my character had and like how that influenced every single skill that he has is really satisfying.
Yeah, Hakon's got or Hackinson's got some interesting life path options. Like he started off as born on a ship, became a sailor, and then he became a mercenary captain, which was part of the reason why I tied him to Ogvy's Bastards. Like he was a captain of Ogvy's Bastards was the story I had in my head. And then he became a freebooter, and he's a veteran, so people know who he is. Also, because he spent his time as a very good professional soldier, he had tons of resources at the beginning, which is why he started off like owning a house, owning a ship. Like those are big deal items in this setting.
Huge, yeah.
And because you can start off with different numbers of life paths, it's like a huge different types of characters you can create, right? Peace out, Nico. See you later, man.
See you later, fellas. I got a bell. Thanks for the game, Chris. Catch you all soon.
So it's like you can have like 3 to 4 life paths, which is the standard. That's what like me and Aaron was. You can have like 5 to 6 as someone veteran, but then you can have like a 1 or 2 life path character, right? And you could be someone like kind of like Arya Stark, like playing like a story like that, which would be like super cool. Just like a huge different variety you can make up. So
yeah, I definitely want to explore it more. I think I'm going to take Mike the Piper's suggestion. He says that we should do it in his world next time. I think
I'm down for that.
I think I'm going to do a post up, an interest post on Absolute Tabletop for a session with a fight mechanic used in it in the Iron Kingdoms.
Oh, dope. As long as I'm in it, I'm excited for it. If I'm not in it, I'm not excited for it.
Well, we'll see. Since that one is probably going to be a fight mechanic, I'll probably just pull one person to do a one-on-one session, or maybe just a couple people. I don't know what mechanics exactly I want to explore. I know I want to do fight. There's also range and cover, which I haven't done yet.
That would be very good for Mike the Piper setting.
Yeah. I was going to say, because like the Ironhead Chronicles, they have guns and stuff like that in there. So that might be a good idea, is to have like a little trench warfare session with some ranged combat mechanics and see how those work.
Or like a shootout, like a gang shootout in the city or something cool like that.
Yeah. Well, that is pretty much all I wanted to touch on. Generally speaking, Burning Wheel's a little crunchy, but it's pretty front-loaded. I enjoyed it quite a bit. If it turns out that it's a good thing, we may see some Xiaoyun using Burning Wheel, because I see some stuff that could carry over and be very cool. And maybe a secret project in the future. But I'll touch upon that when it becomes more solid. With that said, guys, thanks for tuning in. And as always, I'll see you at the gaming table.